I'd like to call the regular City Council meeting, Des Moines City Council meeting of June 16th to order. And could we have Councilmember Back please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let the record show that all council members are present. And that takes us forward to correspondence.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two items. The first is a letter from a gentleman interested in opening up a used car dealership on Pack Highway. I think you've all seen this letter. Some research that we've done regarding this, the zoning allows for 2 locations for used cars in that portion of Pack Ridge or Pack Highway. And we've learned that apparently Helen's has ceased operations and is now sort of cleaning up their administrative and financial responsibilities. So it's possible there's only one functioning used car lot, but it seems like this would perhaps be an opportunity in response to this to, suggest this would go back to, go to Finance and Econ for a discussion about those particular uses on Pack Ridge.
Thoughts? Anyone?
I think that's reasonable.
As a chair, I don't mind seeing it.
Well,
I'll make a motion that it get remanded to Finance and Econ.
Second.
Okay. All those. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Great, thank you. The second one is a follow-up letter that I think you've seen regarding vehicles blocking access to mailboxes. Mm-hmm. And this was an issue that Finance and Econ had discussed in April. And at that time, one of the pieces of information we needed to acquire was kind of what are the parameters of the United States Postal Service relative to how that relates to local jurisdictions and parking access. And so our police department was looking into that, and I believe that they are in the process of acquiring that information. So we'd like to suggest that the wish of the committee at the time was to bring it back to the committee with that information. So we'd like to plan for the next meeting that we continue the discussion of this item.
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all.
Right. Thank you. This now brings us to the point of the meeting where we take comments from the public. Comments are made from the podium. When you get to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, and each individual will have 3 minutes. Our first speaker is Jerry Harris.
Yes, my name is Jerry Harris. My address is 24107 20th Avenue South, Des Moines. I come to speak to the council tonight about an issue that's been going on for years. I was a commissioner of the board of fireworks here for years and years, and we kept coming down to get you guys to ban them, and finally we got it done. And that was a great help for the fire service. But now I'm coming back to pick up some pieces of it again and try to get you to do a little more of it. I'd like to see you put up some of these road signs with the writing on the sign on a trailer that fireworks are banned in the city of Des Moines. Because everybody goes out to Muckajuice and buys them all and brings them back into Des Moines, Normandy Park, Berrien, Federway. They're all banned. The city's banned them all, but they got to really have a hard time enforcing it all. And I thought if we had some reader boards up there, letting the public know that they are banned in the city of Des Moines and you're liable to get a fine. And it'd help tremendously, I think, to curb some of this fireworks we get every year. It's really, it's been going on for so long now that people sort of accept it, but I never have, because I've got animals and they just go crazy every 4th of July. That's why I don't go no place, because of the animals I got. So any help you guys can give us, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who didn't get a chance to sign up that would like to address the council? Seeing no one come forward, that will take us forward to board and committee reports, and we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Pennington.
Thank you. No committee reports, didn't have any meetings to go to. What are we doing, or do we have a plan? I know years ago, and I remember when Jerry was, well, he hired me, but anyway, we put together, the whole signage, and we put that out, and we drove some signs in the ground, and it was really effective. And so, do we currently have any of those signs left, or do we have some reader boards, or what's our plan to get that message out? And I think it's an important message. We learned last year, our season was really dry. This year, it probably won't be as bad as last year, but it's not going to be a good season for us. So, do we have a plan? Have we got a plan in place to notify the public about the ban on fireworks?
I think we can look at getting that covered under the administration report.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll follow it up then. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes, a few items. First is the Office of Financial Management puts out a report every year listing what the population is for the various jurisdictions in the state, both county and the cities. And the city of Des Moines officially has 31,040 residents. What's notable about this is that's a jump of 940 residents from the prior year. That's 3% growth in 1 year. So, and that's before any additional housing has been built. So it would be interesting to know whether that's true of all of the suburban cities. I didn't look that closely to see how SeaTac and the others have done. But with the lack of housing, with housing prices going up in Seattle, that's obviously going to drive that here in the South End as well. And so we should take note of the fact that we jumped almost 1,000 people in a year. I wonder if it's a typo, but usually OFM is a lot more studious about what numbers they put down than is the Department of Revenue. So anyhow, I just thought you'd want to take note of that. We're the 37th largest city in Washington State. Second item, quick update for the public. The City Council met in executive session on the 7th, so that's last Tuesday, and met with the consultant who's doing the search for city manager. We received 36 applicants for the position, and council provided feedback to the questions that the consultant had. The next executive session in terms of looking at candidates is going to be on June 30th, so 2 weeks from tonight. And based on the feedback from that, candidates will be invited to participate in a tour of the city, the open house that we're having with the public the night of July 19th, and on July 20th they'll be going through interview panels. There'll be 5 interview panels. Now, if I can remember what they are off the top of my head, one will be the council, one will be the department heads, one will be city employees, one will be leaders within the community of the different entities, so like the Federal Way and Highline School District, Highline College, Fire District, Marina Association, I forget who else is on that. And then one will be the people who are participating on the Citizens Advisory Council. So, and then based on the feedback from those 2 days, council will be meeting again in executive session on July 28th, and hoping to get a better evaluation of the candidates before we come out and make a decision. So that's what's happening on the city manager search. Last Friday, I attended an event called Life Arts. There is a nonprofit organization that has provides opportunity for children from Midway Elementary and Pacific Middle School to actually get involved with the arts after school. And it's basically a program that gives a productive things for kids to do rather than getting in trouble and having too much free time on their hands. So it gives them another alternative for activities after school. The kids had their art on display at Midway Covenant Church, and it was really kind of a cool event to see what the different ages of kids came up with in terms of what they had. It's a great program. They're looking to possibly expand within the city, provide more opportunity for children in different parts of the city. And they've also talked about the possibility of expanding for other programs. For example, have a program to take care of animals, or have a program to take care of, so to teach kids on how to take care of animals, or to do some other different things that would be supportive, positive activities that would help them in terms of teaching them the importance not only of creativity but responsibility on some of these things as well. But anyhow, it was a very, very good event, and I'm guessing there had to be somewhere between 50 and 75 kids and parents there on Friday. On Tuesday of this week, I attended a meeting on youth violence at Highline College that the Highline School District had asked for. Councilmember Bangs was there, and I'm trying to remember if anybody else was. No. And a few members of the Police Advisory Council were there as well. It was a very good, very interesting, very eye-opening conversation. They had a panel. One of the panelists was our school resource officer, Kripe, who has done a bang-up job with the kids. And a couple of students were on that panel as well to talk about the circumstances they've been under and the importance of essentially the love and attention that they get and that they need, not only from their families, or might be missing from their families, but from members of the community as well. There was a lot of discussion regarding a new program that the Matt Griffin YMCA is working with the Highline School District, entitled Graduate Highline, with a goal of getting 95% of students to graduate, which is a tremendous goal. They are looking at different ways to provide options for the kids to get involved and to, in productive activities. There was a lot of discussion regarding the need for more cultural diversity among teachers and curriculum, a need for good role models in the community for the kids, people who would just be present, someone who can make sure that those kids are going to know that you're going to be there for them. Doesn't mean that they need to be given a particular helping hand, or they need to be given advice, or that they need people who are asking about their circumstances or how they wind up where they are, but just to be supportive of them and give them the foundation that they need to know that whatever they're doing, that they've got, things are going well. A phrase that I took a note down on was one positive adult. That really stood out. There was also a presentation by a couple speakers from Circle of Change. former gang and drug felon who turned his life around and is providing positive enforcement for and options for the kids. And then there was a lot of comments from the community, and the two things that stood out there in particular were that this was a good first meeting, but the next meeting they need to get the children and their parents at the meeting. And in conversation with some of the people who spoke up at that meeting, a number of them said it may be difficult to get them to come to a meeting. We may have to take it to them. So, but you've got people from the school district, you've got people from our police department and the departments in Federal Way, you've got human service providers, you've got the laundry list, and the diversity of the people that were involved in terms of being supportive was really quite impressive. And I'm hopeful that we're going to see some positive things come out of that in terms of making sure that the kids are getting the support and having the options available to them so that they don't have to feel like the only thing that they have an option to them is gangs and drugs. Yesterday, I attended the South County Leadership Group on Sound Transit. Good presentation on what's happening with Sound Transit 2 and also Sound Transit 3 that's going to be on the ballot. I believe today the Sound Transit Board was supposed to make a decision in terms of what they're going to put forward. They're expediting because they've figured out a way that they can actually borrow a little bit more money because they're not having to spend some money on some things that they thought they were going to have to, and they've got a little bit more than they thought. They're going to be able to expedite construction so that the entire length down to Federal Way may be built at the same time rather than in stages, which means that the Highline Kent Des Moines station may be a little bit later than 2023, but the whole thing would be open by 2024 down to Federal Way. So that's what the biggest thing that came out of that conversation. And then today I had the pleasure of attending the Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce luncheon, where the mayors from the 5 jurisdictions, Burien, Normandy Park, SeaTac, Des Moines, and Tukwila, get to do a presentation, so I'm not going to steal Matt's thunder on that. But Matt did a good job today, and it was great having it at the hotel here in Des Moines. In fact, that's the second or third event that we've had in Des Moines here by local organizations, and everybody's been impressed with the facility, and it's great having them come to Des Moines and see some of the new things that are beginning to happen. So, that's that.
I'm going to jump over to Councilmember Bangs.
Thank you. On Monday, I attended the Police Department Advisory Committee meeting and essentially the chief went over some budget items, also discussed the youth violence seminar or discussion on Tuesday that was coming up. They're also switching National Night Out to August 2nd, so that information will be coming out, I'm sure, August 2nd, right? Okay, more information will come out about that. The Arts Commission had their meeting on Tuesday. I wasn't able to be there, but I do have a few things to say based on the minutes. Quite a few volunteers have come forward from the schools, and we've got, what introduced was Daniel Engelhard, who's a volunteer who will be helping the commission with various activities. 2 summer interns, Jacob Gardner and Kyle Ellers, and he'll be working during with Parks and Rec, and also down at the concerts in the park. And then introduced was Gemma Gendrew, junior commissioner volunteer. I believe this is the first, which is pretty exciting. So a sophomore from Rainier High School. That's pretty exciting to have that person on board. And Gemma will be helping on marketing, a subcommittee, I believe, on marketing. So July 6th, we've got the huge event. We've got that Concerts in the Park, and the Farmers Market as well will be 4 to 8 that night. We've got Smoke on the Water barbecue from 5 to 7, the silent auction from 5 to 8, and a free kids concert, which will be Harmonica Pocket. Should be exciting, 5:30 to 6:30, and our Whiskey River starts at 7 o'clock. I think I hit everything. I also attended with Council Member Kaplan the Coming Together to Take on Youth Violence. It was pretty eye-opening to see students up there who have had a really rough time in life, and to hear them sing the praises of Justin, who's in the school and will do just about anything for a child to get them on the right foot. Not enough officers, not enough CSOs, not enough counselors. I think the things that sort of struck me that night was that Prosecutor Satterberg said, the new normal is youth, guns, and senseless violence. There were 16 cases filed this year of murder, on murder charges. 9 were juveniles, 8 were in Des Moines. Insane. The cases that were filed last year, 0. Trying to get our heads around what this violence is and what the root cause is, and it's overwhelming, actually. It's almost feeling like the horse is out the barn, now what do we do? So it is incumbent upon every single one of us in some form or fashion to get involved in some way. We had one counselor stand up, and it was amazing to me. She is a truancy officer, and she's won for 19,000 students. When you see these numbers, that's when it really hits. But when you're at home, it really doesn't, because we're at home and we see the news. But it's hitting us here in our own communities, and that's unfortunate because sometimes we think, you know, it's somewhere else, but somewhere else eventually comes here, and that's kind of like where we are. So no answers. Hopefully the next sessions will get us to the root cause. If we can get those parents and those, I believe one student said it, you know, we need adults who will really be there for us. And what was amazing is they said, we can read your faces and we can read your hands. And that took me aback for a minute. And it was all about believing in what an adult is saying to them. And volunteering, and we had a lot of volunteer parents there, as a matter of fact, who really were adamant about being involved. The energy was amazing. So it just takes one. And that can turn around one kid who turns around another, who turns around another. And we're all pretty much parents here, and those that aren't know adults who are parents. So it's just a matter of somehow getting involved and staying involved with the consistency. You know, just be present. And the other thing that really amazed me was the one, I can't think of her name, the one young lady who just who cried, essentially.
The one who was up front?
Yeah.
It's
But she said,
Veronica.
Right, Veronica. She said, it's all about love. You show the love, give the love. And love is free. I mean, we all know that, right? Love is free. I know a lot of us are afraid to give it, but love is truly free for these kids, and it's really tough. So that's something to think about tonight when you go home. That's the end of my report.
I'll go back to Councilmember Back.
Just quickly, yes, we did have an Environment Committee meeting tonight. Staff presented the surface water management capital improvement projects for the next 5 years. The current big one that's happening is the Massey Creek channel modification right behind Taco Time, and that's well underway, and that one's looking good. I did appreciate the comment tonight about good advertising regarding no fireworks, because I think a lot of people just don't care. And I know what it's like to have animals, especially. You got to be careful with livestock or larger animals. So, boy, the idea of a reader board or some kind of messaging to get the word out, just to reinforce it, because people have kind of, I think the first year or two, people got it and they knew, boy, if I break the law, I'm going to get in trouble. But a lot of people don't care, so that's a good suggestion, I thought. And then lastly, on Tuesday night, I got to attend Wesley Gardens, a little public forum with Mayor Pina, kind of an introduction to both of us, and Matt gave a great State of the City report, and then just had some really engaging questions. And these are neat folks at Wesley Gardens. Most of them are in their twilight years, but I just love the fact that they were so engaged with the community, and they want to know what's going on, and they care. And I don't know, Matt, I'm thinking 4 dozen maybe, close to 50 people.
Close to 50 people, yes.
At least, so we were there at least an hour and a half and still couldn't get out because people wanted to talk. So we're hoping to do this on at least a once to twice a year basis. But I just really have a good appreciation for the folks at Wesley Gardens. It's they're quality people there, and that's a quality facility. So that's all I got.
Okay, Councilmember Nutting.
I don't have a committee report tonight, but to piggyback on what Councilmember Bangs and Councilmember Kaplan were talking about, I didn't get to attend the violence, the youth violence thing at Highline, but the PTSA is where you need to start if you want to volunteer. Contact whether it's the middle school, the high school. All you have to do is a background check, and you can volunteer for anything at these schools. For some reason, there is a huge drop-off and a huge disconnect. Once your kids leave the primary school and go into middle school, there is almost no parental involvement in these schools at all. And there's no reason for it. We all care about our kids. We all want to be a part of their lives and help other kids as well, because all too often they're from a broken home, and the single parent is working 2 or 3 or 4 jobs just to put food on the table. And just get in contact with the school, go through the background check, and you can volunteer and help out at any event to be security or help out in the lunchroom. The Highline School District will let you volunteer as well. So if it's just to help one soul, my mother was a teacher, well, is a educator, and it was all about helping that one person if she couldn't help the whole classroom. So if it's just to help one kid make it through, it's worth it. So that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Councilmember Musser.
Well, Councilmember Nutting segued perfectly into what I wanted to talk about tonight, which was I promised Mrs. Nutting that I would embarrass Jeremy tonight by acknowledging his Golden Acorn Award, which is an award given by Washington State PTA for Volunteer of the Year. And so I think when Jeremy speaks about being involved, it's because he walks the walk. I was honored probably about 12 years ago to start a program at North Hill Elementary School, the only one of its kind in the state, called Watchdogs. And DOGS stands for Dads of Great Students. And the program was started in Michigan back in the late 90s when this man was a stay-at-home dad, and he'd drop his kids off every morning, and he'd help in the drive-thru, and he'd look around and he'd notice that there were no adult men on campus. All the PTA moms were there, majority of the teachers were women, the administrative staff, maybe men, but for the most part, all women. And the worst possible thing you could imagine happened, a school shooting. Happened at the elementary school of all places. Next day, all the dads were there. And he kind of stopped and said, why does it take an event so tragic to bring the male response into the schools? And so he put together this program, rolled it out throughout the nation, partnering with the National PTA. And what it does is it challenges positive male role models, whether it be a father, an uncle, a big brother, a coach. The first year we rolled it out, we had Des Moines police officers and South King firefighters came in. I think we had a couple of guys from the minor league Rainiers came in uniform. One day. Not one day a week, one day a month, one day of the school year. Be there, be present, have breakfast with your kid in the lunchroom, be out on the playground. And the promise was, we're not going to make you do something that's out of your comfort zone. You don't have to lead an art class. You don't have to, if you want to just help walk the halls with these kids. And I think Jeremy could probably testify more than anyone here, there are these kids who just look forward to, if you don't have a dad of your own, they kind of assign these kids to these men, and they're like, to see these kids on the playground with, this is my dad today, this is my guy, this is the person who's looking out for me. And so I would encourage anyone who's out there who's involved in your school and you just don't know what to do, Google search, it's at fathers.com, couldn't be any more simple. Watchdogs, National Center for Fathering. If you just want to be involved, I mean, I loved it that we had the grandpas on campus. Their kids were all grown and gone, and they kind of just missed helping out, and they would come and help serve lunch or help clean up the lunchroom or help with PE and help with reading. I mean, I think that's such a huge thing, the patience that having someone come and read with a student can make. And, Jeremy's there doing it, serving pizza, helping with carnival, setting up, taking down, volunteering in the classrooms, and we just need more of that influence. And so I think it goes so far into what, you were both hearing from and speaking with Officer Cripes about how, you look around and they're just, the parents slowly disperse. If their kids are athletes, they'll be involved maybe out on the field or helping with the coaches, but just being present and being there. And as parents, we can sometimes say something to a student that a teacher couldn't say, and sometimes those words need to be heard, like, hey, knucklehead, come on, not such a good choice here today. And so I wanted to acknowledge your hard work. I was laughing and saying, I moved to the North Hill of Des Moines, Jeremy moves to the North Hill of Des Moines. I win the Golden Acorn, Jeremy reigns. I got council, so I'm trying to think of what my next life event is to see what you can keep up with here. So congratulations, and
Thank you.
ends my report.
And I just want to say that winning the Golden Acorn, I couldn't have done it without all the other dads that are involved. There's at least 8 of them that are there on an event basis helping me out. And we've got a great support up there at North Hill. We just got to make sure that it transfers to the middle school level. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Well, it's having served on the school board, I know what that Golden Acorn means. And, it's funny. It's got an interesting title. It's an acorn. It's not easy to get recognized at that level. So, Councilmember Nutting, I salute you. That's really a big deal. The only other person I knew that got one was a superintendent. So, amazing job there. But it is important to have people in your adults in kids' life, even if they're not from a broken home or, have a good situation when they grow up. And one of the things that's always great for me is when I run into this gentleman here, Jerry Harris, who was my baseball coach when I was young. I'm sure he called me a knucklehead more than once. And here it is many years later, and he's still actively involved, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, not as much as you think.
Okay, so I have a few things to run through and then a little bit of housekeeping. So on the 11th, we had the farmers market, and we also had the North Hill barbecue. And I was able to go up and attend it. That's another group up there that they're very active. This was an annual event where the food is free. They just want you to come in and get to know who they are and so forth. And so I spent a little bit of time up there getting to know the folks in the neighborhood. All very positive things to say. So that was nice. And then on the 15th, or earlier this week, I ran into a conflict between the youth violence presentation and a prior commitment to go with Councilmember back to Wesley Holmes. Because of this amazing group, and we had people at the dais tonight that were willing to attend the youth violence and make sure that we were well represented and that the issue was well heard, I was able to maintain my appointment with Councilmember Back and go to Wesley Holmes. again, I thank those who went because again, it shows we're working together and it's making sure that we are involved on all fronts. And it's something I very much appreciate. And I just wanted to say thank you. At Wesley Homes, Councilmember Beck was right. It was a large group. And it's funny because some folks had real mobility problems. Other folks were, didn't have that. But from all of their challenges, the one thing that they were absolutely certain about is they wanted to understand what was going on. They wanted us to hear their voice. And it was really, it was a fun evening. We didn't bring an agenda. We let them ask the first question. And the first question that did come to us was about our city form of government. So that's where we started. And and it was a little over an hour later, the person who was responsible for putting this event on, or for emceeing the event, I should say, said, okay, you're done, but you can keep going if you want. Well, it was 45 minutes later, and there were still, we finally ended it, but then there were a number of people who were too shy to use the microphone, so they came up and they kind of corralled us, and we had a little bit more conversation. So it was a great night. And today, I did have the opportunity to represent the city of Des Moines at the Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce Mayor's Luncheon. I was there along with the mayors from, as noted, Burien, Normandy Park, SeaTac, and Tukwila. We were all given between around 10 minutes to do a presentation, verbal presentation on the city of Des Moines. And wow, it was great going through it. It was well received. I also had Councilmember Musser and our former mayor Dave Kaplan there, and so our city manager Tony Piasecki was also there. But the thing that surprised me a little bit about that event was there was a question and answer session after the mayors were through with all the presentations, and it was interesting because I really didn't know what questions were coming, but we here in Des Moines are talking about the right things. The questions that were coming up, I felt very comfortable answering. It was really easy. And there were some times I was the only one willing to go to the podium. So that was again, a great event, and it made me really proud to be able to represent Des Moines there, actually in Des Moines at the Sheridan Four Point.
Well, and I loved it when a couple of the other mayors had said, if you guys haven't seen what Des Moines got going on over at the FAA site, you got to go check it out. It's great. And I was like, awesome. Okay, they're telling people to come to Des Moines and see what we've got going on. So that was
and they're from
a
other
nice
cities.
change.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, they were from Burien and Tukwila was telling people to come look at what we've got going.
It's nice to be where it's happening. Yes, question?
To kind of follow up with that, the last 2 days and tomorrow, I've been working on, up at the fire district, our strategic plan and redoing that. And the first day was yesterday, and we had the community stakeholders, the other community agencies, the City of Federal Way, City of Des Moines, the utility districts, all these folks that were up there looking at the perspective, how the fire district is perceived through their eyes. Representing the City of Des Moines was our assistant city manager, and he talked about everything that was going on and the family wage jobs and all of the numbers of folks that are coming in and the things that are projected in the future that are firm things. And I was approached by several different people. The chamber was represented from the City of Federal Way. They were just amazed at what was going on in Des Moines, as well as a lot of other entities. And I think the message that I took from that to bring back here was things are happening, but it's here in our community. People are aware, and some may not be, but they were just amazed at all of the things that were going on in the city of Des Moines. And the Federal Way Chamber says, we don't have that type of stuff. We have smaller businesses going in, but we don't have that degree of businesses that's happening over in the business park. So it really speaks well of the work that has been done over the last few years to get us to this point. And I know some of that work hasn't been popular with folks, and some has, but the dividends are starting to pay off of that work and those hard knocks that a lot of us have received, and it's being recognized by our neighbors as, wow, what the heck is going on? And how come we aren't doing that? So it really, truly does speak to the hard work of everybody that's been involved in this city.
Well, and it's also our approach. It was a pleasure to be able to speak about partnerships. Recently, in a conversation with our city manager, Piasecki, he gave me a visual that I really, really liked. Our approach when we talk to other entities about partnering is not to come at you with your hand out. It's to come at you with a handshake. We are bringing something to the table. We are not asking for, something for nothing. We are willing to do the work. We are willing to partner, and we're looking for a win-win. And I think, it's been many years. I mean, all the while that I've been on the council, we've been working on the business park and other opportunities. Former Mayor Kaplan could tell stories for several weeks, I'm sure, because I won't ask. Okay, but anyway, but there's been a lot that has gone on over the years, and to get us where we are. But I give a lot of credit to the councils that I've had the ability to be associated with, because it's just rolling up the sleeves, doing the right thing for the community, and it's really a pleasure to be able to go out and tell that story. I will get the opportunity again to tell that story. I'll be doing a presentation at the end of the month to Rotary. And so those that were there from Rotary today already have the preview, but it will be matched with pictures next time because we're putting it in a PowerPoint. And then the other thing that was brought up is the Graduate Highline. And I just wanted to make it known to the council that I will be meeting with district and Highline School District Foundation leaders early next week to figure out how we can be part of that and learn more about it. On the housekeeping side of things, there's a few items that have come up over the past several months, and I want to make sure that we clean them up a little bit. So we've discussed school impact fees. We've had a presentation on at Finance and Econ. At Finance and Econ, it had to do with the Highline School District, but really these impact fees, we have both Highline and Federal Way in the city of Des Moines. And there's a piece that they have, and there's a piece that we have, and then there's a negotiation in between. But the work that, as we talk about it, the issue has come to staff, but has never been remanded to committee. So if we really want to go forward, and I think, in my personal opinion, is we should go forward with these discussions, but I think we officially should remand school impact fees to the Finance and Econ Committee. So I'm going to make that motion and then ask for a second.
Second.
So the motion was made by myself, seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Any discussion?
So has this, I know that since John Welch was our superintendent for the Highline Schools, this has been a topic of conversation. Is this something Dr. Enfield wants to legitimately move forward with? Because it needs to come from the district as an ask, and then we facilitate the collection of it, correct?
There's more to it that we have
Okay.
than there's this negotiation piece in the middle. Actually, school impact fees have been discussed since I served on the school board under Dr. McGeehan. The district has had a hard time for some reason moving forward with it, but they are, both from the board and from the superintendent's office, interested in pursuing it.
And is it throughout, because Des Moines is just one of five cities affected by Highline Schools, so is it something they're bringing forward to all of the cities that they serve?
Yes.
Okay.
And years ago, Federal Way asked us about it. I don't know how far we got on it, because I don't think they were ready to implement at that point in time. So the only thing I would recommend is when we remand it to committee, we should let both of the districts know, both Federal Way and Highline, say, if you're interested in this issue, then you need to tell us.
I absolutely
Because I don't
agree.
think we should waste our time on it if they're not interested.
I actually believe that
that's my question.
they're both interested, and one has a working model, it just hasn't gotten to the city of Des Moines. The other one is trying to solidify their working model.
And these would be fees imposed on new residential development in the city?
It would be based on new construction, yes.
Federal Way Schools isn't already collecting it? Because I had thought at Landmark Key, they had to pay a school impact fee because those
They did.
townhomes,
They
those
did.
kids go to Federal Way Schools.
But it was done,
We did that through an interlocal agreement.
Okay.
okay, thank you. So, any further discussion? All those in favor of remanding it to committee, please raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so officially got that going forward. The second item I have was last meeting, there was a suggestion of either some ordinance development or changes. It had to do with closing parks, the marina, possibly the boardwalk from 11:30 PM to 4 AM. And also to look at ordinances that would, prevent cruising and loitering to help us with the management of this. And I think there's some validity to that suggestion. And again, I feel that this should be something that should be looked at by our Public Safety and Transportation Committee. So again, I would like to make the motion that we officially remand that to that committee.
Second.
Okay, so motion was made by myself, seconded by Councilmember Nunning. Any discussion?
I think it's a great idea. People are attracted to the water, but you don't need to be at the water at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning. And we've had some issues already, so I think it's a good idea to at least have a committee look at this.
Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that topic. You have it? Okay. Keep the pen moving, I've got two more. So, another topic that has come up and been a challenge for us is that we have some buildings in the Marina District and probably in other areas of the city that are in a particular zoning and have a list of acceptable uses, but because of parking constraints, cannot, some of those acceptable uses won't work. And so essentially, we have some obsolescence in there. And it's, if someone looks and says, well, I can do this in this building because the zoning says I can do it, and they take out a lease, then when they file for a license or a permit, the business license, then they find out they can't do it because they don't have the zoning or the parking. This is a problem. So I think, again, this should be looked at. Again, everything we're moving forward to committee will have to be found, somehow placed in the agendas. So I'm not saying that all of these will become top priority. But that particular topic is contributing to some vacancies we have on Marine View Drive. And I think it ought to be looked at by Finance and Econ. So again, I am asking the council to consider remand to Finance and Econ. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington? Any discussion? Councilmember Kaplan.
I'd rather we focused and put the effort into figuring out what the parking situation is going to be downtown on a more comprehensive basis, rather than doing what essentially has been a rifle shot thing that we've done for the last several years. I wasn't enthused about extending it the couple times that we did anyways, but we did it for specific reasons because of the nature of the odd parcels that we had in downtown.
I'm not implying a parking moratorium.
Well, we're talking about looking at this issue, and I don't know how you divorce it from the broader issue of parking in downtown.
Well, I think, first of all, to solve the broader issue could take a period of time, and to have all these vacancies for that period of time is a concern. I have to wonder if there isn't an opportunity to potentially grandfather for certain properties to a lower parking requirement so they can be used. I don't think we should back off on our focus to solve the downtown parking problem regardless. But I think this particular issue with some of these buildings that only have 1 or 2 parking spaces, if someone wants to open a business and they're in parking, but the lack of parking will affect their business model. But to say that they couldn't get a license because they don't have the parking, I guess I would rather let the business make that decision. And it may be that the business is high enough in demand that, yeah, you might have to park 2 blocks away, but I'm just trying, this to me is an interim solution while we do address the bigger picture, but the bigger picture has dollars, timing, partnership, a lot of things. Could take a period of time, and in the meantime, we have vacancies because we can't effectively address it. But I am not in favor of instituting a parking moratorium. Councilmember Pennington?
So would it be the intent of your motion then to come up with a short-term solution to help these businesses, but would the committee also be tasked with looking at a long-term solution? Because I think that there's some work that could be done and some outreach that to different property owners that may help us in the long term. So is that what I'm hearing you say, or
No. My intent is to remand the issue to committee for discussion.
Well, right, but
I don't have the solution.
But
I think we need to look at what our options are.
Right, so I'm asking it at the committee level.
Yes.
This is the scope of work that you want to have happen in the committee level. A short-term solution with some long-term.
It may just be long-term period, because, you just put in a solution that potentially you could say, these buildings were built with this parking requirement, and these are acceptable business uses per our zoning. If they think they can make a go of it with what they've got, okay. But it's, and maybe that's not practical. I won't know until the committee gets a chance to really have that discussion.
So if I can ask our finance director, was the parking study on the CIP, or was it in the operating budget but a few years out? The Marina District parking study, or maybe Dan or Brandon would know.
Seeing no one come forward, I'm not sure you have an answer.
My point is, if that's not going to be done for 3 years, I don't consider trying to find something I don't consider 3 years short term.
Okay.
Necessarily. So it's all about timeline and how it all fits together. So, but send it to committee and talk about it. But
Councilmember Banks?
I agree that we send it to committee. I know we'll vote on it. But my question is, when we're looking at 1, 2, or 3 businesses that are looking at more parking for whatever they need in terms of what they're asking for, will these one-offs affect the total, this should be a question for the committee, the total parking of whatever that plan is for the Marina District? Because what you're doing is, I'm not on the committee, but you're taking a one-shot look, to use that phrase, for something that we should be looking at as a whole, and that may impact that total look at parking for the entire business. And you're right, send it to the committee, let them answer those questions, but I think it's a concern for the bigger picture.
Councilmember Nutting?
The handful of businesses that we would be looking at are in the area of town that is already flush with business, that on any given night you still have to walk 2 or 3 blocks to get to the destination that you want to go to. So by looking at this to lessen the amount of parking spots for a business that is on a piece of property that may be in a building that is past its usable life and should be redeveloped anyways, is a little concerning as the chair of the committee. There's other solutions, I think, and we'll have to deal with that in committee, but it is in an area of town that is Sunday through Friday, Sunday through Saturday, absolutely packed every night. So
We have a comment from the Assistant City Manager.
Yeah, waiting in here. I think that I understand the point of what the mayor is saying. The issue is that there's no solution until there's a solution. And that solution has to be a comprehensive solution that addresses a lot of things, the marina, redevelopment downtown. There's different mechanisms to fund things like that. I think the thing that we would want to avoid is a situation, I mean, those parking requirements are established so that each business can kind of maintain sort of the functionality of the clients and people that go to it without intruding into other businesses' ability to do the same thing. So I think one of the considerations is looking at short-term impacts in the context of finding long-term solutions. And the answer is a long-term solution. I think Councilmember Kaplan has referred to that. So I think it's absolutely a fair question to try and resolve, but the resolution won't be a short-term resolution. It's going to satisfy the needs. It's going to be a long-term solution.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. So I'm saying that there are buildings down there that everybody's points here are valid. But if you're a building and you're zoned to be able to have these 25 uses, and you lease the building because what you want to do is listed in those 25 acceptable uses, but the building only has 2 parking places, and you don't know that one of those uses requires 5 parking spaces, do you say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to issue you a business license, or do you grandfather them even if they want to make a go at it and say, okay, you've got your 2 parking spaces, but granted, anybody above that might have to walk 3 blocks or whatever. I just feel like, is it better to have the vacancy? Or is it, some businesses have the type of turnover that someone could pull in, go in, do their business and leave, and there's enough turnover in the parking spaces based on the business that it wouldn't be an issue. I'm just trying to be clear. I'm not promoting moratorium, alternative. I mean, I know we need to go long-term. I'm just trying to make sure that those properties are leasable. Councilmember Back.
So a point of clarity. So the motion was for the business district downtown, which is primarily Marine View Drive and 7th Avenue, but we are talking about the Marina District. So, but
I am talking about any place in the city where we have essentially a building that was built at a point in time, maybe the building's been beautifully maintained, but it only has 3 parking spaces, that if it has acceptable uses that would require more than 3 parking spaces, do we deny a business permit because of that? So it's a discussion. I am not here with the answer. I'm just trying to get it to a committee so we can have the discussion. But I think it's excellent that we're all having this conversation because it shows it should be in committee. But that's my opinion. So I've made the motion. It was seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington. Is there any last-minute comment? All those in favor of remanding this to committee, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Oh, we have the enthusiasm team down there. Okay, so, and then the last thing I wanted to address was we have received a number of submittals to the advisory committee, and I think we have enough to move it forward. I'm concerned about delaying any longer. We only have one neighborhood that's not yet represented, and I think we will continue to keep it open to that neighborhood. But I would like to, and have asked, that we pull down this Friday, that we take it down off our website, and that we work with the submissions that we have had so far. I've been through them, and I believe, I've been through them with some of the city staff, and I believe we have a good pool of applicants, albeit it's a bit lean, but good and enough to get a broad base of representation. My concern is that if we don't cut this off and start moving forward, we will not have a committee in the time that we need for the hiring of a new city manager. And if we aren't careful, we may not have it for the budget retreat. So and the budget and our council retreat will be two of the minimum 3 meetings for certain that I hope will take place every year. So I just wanted to let the council know that that's where I was headed with that. Are there any concerns? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Councilmember Banks? I do, but. Okay, well.
You know, I know that the timing is short, and I think given that community that we're talking about that's not represented is a concern to me.
Oh, I agree.
It's a concern to all of us. And taking down, when did you say, this Friday?
I'm saying that we will continue to look for a representative from that particular community, and we will work through different channels. The current channels we've been working through obviously aren't getting us a candidate, so we have to work in other ways. It is my intent to fill out all neighborhoods, but what I'm saying is that we have to go forward with what we have, and we will continue to try and get other applicants.
I'm just expressing my concern.
Okay. I share your concern.
The neighborhood not represented so far, that was North Central?
No, it's Pacific Ridge. And to Councilmember Bang's point, I mean, that is a challenge to get a representative from that neighborhood, but we will continue to work on this. I just think that we have to at least take the group that we have and start moving forward. Otherwise, we won't have any kind of advisory committee.
Right. And we did, I believe, the application went out, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping it went out in some of the school paths.
Correct, it did.
Okay.
It did. So that's why I'm saying that's still there. That door is not closed. Okay. Well, I think that concludes my remarks. I will send this over to our Assistant City Manager for the administration report.
Mayor, the only item would be if you could ask the police chief or Brandon, great, to respond to the fireworks question.
Absolutely. Brandon Carver, Engineering Services Manager. Just want to give you a brief picture as to where we're at with the noticing of no fireworks in the city. We do have some static signs as you enter some major points of the city. Those have been up. What we're planning to do this year, Parks Department will be putting up some signs, no fireworks. And in a few years ago, we hadn't done this as much, but we picked this up again last year with the PD. We'll be putting some A-board signs throughout the city and certain arterials that say no fireworks. And we will also be advertising on the Activity Center reader board sign so that, you know, the no fireworks. And last but not least, we will be employing 2 VMS signs to not only let folks know of the firework ban, but to invite them to an alternative, which would be July 4th down at the marina. So that's what we'll be doing. Any questions? Yeah.
The A-board signs, those are the portable?
Yeah, those are the portable ones that we try to hit at other spots where the existing static signs aren't, other arterials.
The VMS signs, where are you?
Generally, Marine View Drive as you come in through town and leave town. Because that's also sort of the road that gets impacted the night of the fireworks, just to let folks know to be aware of that delay.
Okay. And would there be any value in moving those into different parts of the city that may not necessarily, you know, you may not have enough of the other signs, or I don't know, but you know, so a big display sign is one that people see and catch their eye. So.
Well, we have 2, and we try to put those at the high volume traffic-wise spots. We could take a look at that. Certainly coming in from the north, Marine View Drive is our biggest entry point. With the Activity Center reader board, that covers 216th. We can take a look at the south end, we try to cover Kent Des Moines Road and Marine View Drive by putting it down there near Brown Bear, but we'll take a look at that from the south end.
And how many of the signs the signs on posts do you have?
Static signs right now?
Well, not the static.
The A-board signs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
A-board signs are, like the campaign size signs. I know during
Yeah.
first year of the band, we put out a lot of those.
I believe Corey picked up about a dozen or so, maybe 2 dozen, but I'm not sure exactly of that number, but I can get that. But I know at least a dozen.
I know the first year we did this, there was probably 50 or 60 of them out there.
Yeah.
And in the neighborhoods, and that was really effective. And
I think the signs themselves weren't, metal, and they deteriorate over time, but he did
these were the
purchase new
ones, like campaign signs.
Correct.
That were put out in neighborhoods so that you really got that message out, so that, and that's really where a lot of the bulk of the problem is, because of, you get a lot of people driving Marine View Drive, but you may have some folks in the south end or the north end that aren't going past those particular signs. So I think if we can get that message out and maybe perhaps purchase a few more of those signs.
We'll be talking to the PD and see what we can put together.
Do those signs publicize the fine?
I don't remember what's on the sign exactly. I don't know.
Okay, so we did change the law around that, so it was easier for our law enforcement. And I think it would possibly add to the persuasive factor to say, this would be the fine per infraction.
Just to touch on that, Mayor, the fine is $513, unless you're caught in possession of over 5 pounds, and then you can be subject to arrest.
So again, my point, that might be a good deterrent.
The other thing that the fire district will, through the Code Red, the reverse 911 system, plan it for the cities of Federal Way and Des Moines, sending that out, saying that they're illegal, and here are your options to go to display. So those will be happening as well.
Okay.
And Brandon, I don't know if somebody can verify at the school district, they have the big bright yellow and red signs they put up on around the school perimeters that there's no fireworks allowed on school grounds, and that kind of helps as far as that neighborhood signing goes too, because I know I always check. We have a neighbor who lives right next to the old Olympic Middle School track, and so she's always wants to make sure those signs get up, because that seems to be where everyone goes and sets fireworks off on the North Hills.
Those are signs the district is putting up themselves?
Yeah, the school district. So I don't know if somebody wants to check with facilities and make sure that they're doing that again this year.
I saw the one on the Olympic on the backside.
Is it already up?
I saw the one on the rear entry gate.
The dead end of Fifth Avenue where it kind of swoops down.
That swoop. I noticed that this afternoon on the way through.
Good.
So they're putting them up.
Councilmember Beth?
So if there are some complaint neighborhoods, hopefully we could have some signs, and if you're getting a few more complaints than normal for a specific neighborhood, then possibly we could take some of those signs and target that area because it's a high complaint zone.
And that's kind of the focus of our work with PD is knowing those areas. We can help set the signs at those locations based on their input and experience.
Did you have another
And
comment?
I was just going to say, last year it was a real hazard season, but the reasons the neighborhoods are important is we burnt down a few houses last year from fireworks, and multiple houses in one setting. So it's really crucial to get that message out, and certainly I'll be glad to give you some more information as far as some of those areas that we need to focus on. Thanks.
Does that conclude your administrative report?
It does.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have an interesting update.
Just want to let everyone know that the Cavaliers are leading the Warriors 80-71 at the end of the third quarter.
Thank you.
Okay, will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item 1, approval of minutes, and that concludes the consent agenda, Your Honor.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Kaplan, seconded by Councilmember Nutting. Is there any council member who has an item they wish to remove? Seeing no one. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Agenda passes 7-0. And this takes us to new business, or the Dan Brewer Show. So this is our Local Government 101, Part 9, Planning, Building, and Public Works. And this will be presented by our Planning, Building, Public Works Director, Dan Brewer.
Oh, we even have music? Oh, we have popcorn too? I was just joking. He's trying to beat your presentation, Patrice, with sound effects. I was just joking. Is it Raisinets? I know. I'll just go. I know, Jerry, is that good? No, Jerry, is that good or bad? I'm like, I don't know. Best council meeting ever. See, now, Doreen, you really can't tell people they missed out on the fun tonight. So funny.
Before you get started, I just want to say major kudos for the opening.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council, and those in the audience here and those listening at home. Welcome to Part 9 of the City Council's continued series on City Government 101. This is a presentation on the Planning, Building, and Public Works Department. I've broken this presentation up into 3 separate parts. The first, Part 9A, will be on community development. The second part will be on engineering services, and the third part will be on public works and parks maintenance. I hope at the end of this presentation you'll be able to better understand what we do and why we do it. So I first want to talk a little bit about the history of our department. We had a merger in 2005. City Council made the decision to combine the Community Development Department and the Public Works Department into one unified department. We had, under Community Development was planning, building, and our code enforcement. And under Public Works, we had engineering services, our swim utility, and maintenance. This was a concerted effort to establish common goals, streamline direction, and it was very effective. And also it provided a lot of budget savings to the city, where we now only have 1 director instead of 2. So you may see the department referred to sometimes as the PBPW department, not to be confused with the PB&J department. So this is the org chart of the department, kind of represents how we're organized. And there's 4 main divisions in the department. And I'll kind of refer to this chart throughout the presentation to give you an idea of where I'm talking about specifically. So the first section is the administration section. There's 3 FTEs in this group. The second division is community development. There's 3 sections within community development. There's the planning section, the building section, it's a little hard to read, and our permit center. There's 10 FTEs in this division here. The next division is engineering services. We have 3 sections in this division as well. Transportation engineering services, surface water management, utility, and then our capital improvement program. There's 11 FTEs in this division. And the fourth division is our Public Works and Parks Maintenance. We have 5 sections in this division: our fleet maintenance, swim maintenance, street maintenance, our parks maintenance, and then our facility maintenance group. There's 17 FTEs in this division. So the first division I'm going to talk a little bit about is the administration division. As I mentioned, there's 3 employees here in this group, and each of the employees in this division are kind of integral and work with each of the other work groups. This includes me as the director, Peggy Voline here in the audience, our one and only administrative assistant, and then we have 1 GIS administrator. Our GIS administrator services all the divisions in our department as well as other departments within the city. So there's 41 total FTEs in our department, and I've kind of broken them out here by the different sections that you can see. I've been working in public works, city and county government for about 25 years, and I want to assure the council and the members of this community that the staff that we have is one of the most dedicated and professional groups of people that I've ever worked with. First thing I want to point out is we have quite a few number of employees that have been with the city a long time. You can see the length of the time. We have Dave Marsh, our right-of-way inspector, has been here 32 years. And Scott Romano in the back here has been here 20 years. We've got another 12 employees that have been here 10 to 20 years. As a director, if I could go out and cherry pick the dream team staff for this department out of all the professionals in Washington State, this is the staff I would pick, hands down. Really talented group of folks, and we're really lucky to have the employees that we have here. For the 2016 budget for my department, our budget is $22.5 million. And that sounds like a huge number, and obviously it is. That represents our operating budgets, our swim utility, and our capital budget. And the numbers are a little bit hard to read. I'm going to get into the specifics of the budget a little bit more, but you can see about 2/3 of our budget is capital project related, about $14.3 million. 64% of our whole budget is in capital. The smallest portion is our admin budget at just over $250,000 there. Some significant takeaways in the budget process I want to point out is that about 89%, just over $20 million of the budget, is from restricted funding sources. That means it's non-general fund tax sources. So that means that about just under 90% of our budget is coming from outside sources other than property tax, sales tax, and things like that. So our cost recovery is pretty phenomenal. Typically, when you're in 50 to 60% cost recovery, that's pretty normal for a department like ours. So about 10% is from general fund sources. That represents about just under 20% of the city's general fund tax revenue sources in my department. So I'll kind of dig into that budget in each of the divisions as we move forward. So the remainder of this presentation will be on community development. And just to talk a little bit more specifics, we have our community development manager, Denise Lathrop, who oversees 9 direct reports. We have our planning section here. We have our building section, Larry Picard, our building official. And then we kind of have our permit center that services both of those sections. And we'll talk about each one of these in a little bit more detail. So there's 10 FTEs in this section. We also utilize consultant resources that helps us manage peak workloads. And also there's some areas where we may need specific expert support on specific projects. So let's first talk about the planning section. So what do planners do? Well, they partner with communities to help make them better places to live, work, and play. We help shape the vision and of the community by providing guidance on comprehensive planning and design guidelines. I'll have to admit that I've never really liked the term planner, because I don't think it accurately describes the work that our planners do. The term planner is somewhat counterintuitive, and many people think we need more doing and less planning. But that's exactly what this group represents. And as you'll see as we go through the next series of slides, these employees do a lot more than just planning. Some of the key elements for planning in Des Moines include long-range planning. They provide policy support to the City Council. They do a lot of current planning, which is our permitting process, environmental review, and we also manage the city's solid waste and recycling contract. Another key element for the planners is to support economic development by creating partnerships and sustaining those partnerships. The council talked a little bit about that this evening in their opening remarks. You know, at the June 7th, 2016 groundbreaking for the new GSA building at the Des Moines Creek Business Park, that's where this photo was taken. You know, George Northcroft, who's the regional administrator for GSA's Northwest region, reminded everybody in attendance that we are all in this together. He led a big chant, right? You know, he really couldn't have said it better. The picture of this flying dirt in the air it represents over a decade of hard work and partnerships that were created between the public and the private sector in large part by the planners. So here's the periodic table of city planning elements. It's a little bit of planning humor here. You know, we have things like, you know, train station, high schools, grocery stores, and so on and so forth. So just like the elements of the periodic table fit together to form complex compounds like water and sugar and other chemicals, land use elements fit together to make cities, communities, and neighborhoods. And just like some elements and compounds don't mix well together under certain circumstances or conditions like sodium and water, some land use elements don't mix well with others either. So careful attention has to be made when planning and applying land use elements within the community. Des Moines planners must have a diverse set of skills, knowledge, and experience. Other agencies, our agency simply cannot afford to have planners that have specific and focused task areas. Compared to other larger cities like Seattle, King County, and Bellevue, where they may have planners that spend an entire career in just one of these focus areas, we just can't afford to have that kind of support here. So our planners have to have a full set of core competencies and experience in a variety of these areas. And then we rely on consultant support when we need to have specialty work done outside those core competencies. You know, finding planners with this broad set of skills and experience is very difficult. I want to talk for a few minutes about local planning efforts and how they're restricted by the state and regional planning framework or regional policy framework. Land use, local land use and environmental regulations must fit within the prescribed set of laws, regulations, policies that are established at the state and regional levels. You know, the next series of slides I'm going to go through are going to be color-coded to these bars, and so you can kind of see when I'm talking about the various policy framework. So first I'm going to talk about the Growth Management Act. This was established in 1990 and requires intensive planning to address specific topic areas. The Growth Management Act establishes one of the most significant frameworks for local governments and sets forth the primacy for the comprehensive planning process at the city. We have the Shoreline Management Act. This was established in 1971 and aims to protect the shorelines and waters of the state. There's three basic policy areas to the act. Those are the shoreline use, environmental protection, public access. Among other things, Its jurisdiction includes the shorelines of the Puget Sound, of which we have quite a bit. Primary responsibility for administering the Shoreline Management Act has been delegated and assigned to local governments, like the City of Des Moines. There's the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA, which was enacted in 1971. It requires agencies to incorporate the environmental implications of project developments into their decision-making process. We evaluate potential impacts to transportation, energy, animals, public services, and utilities, and we have to establish mitigation where adopted regulations and policy aren't sufficient to address the impact of development. And so as a project comes in, we go through environmental process and decisions are made. There's this variety of decisions that can be made, anywhere from a determination of non-significance all the way up to a EIS, requiring an EIS for a project, environmental impact study. Moving on to the regional, taking a look at some of the regional policy framework. This is managed primarily by the Puget Sound Regional Council. PSRC is the metropolitan planning organization for the Puget Sound region. They review our comprehensive plan for consistency with federal, state, and regional policy established under the GMA. If our comprehensive plan is not consistent with established state and regional policy, the city will not be eligible for certain federal and state grants and potentially other sanctions. One example of regional policy is the Transportation 2040 initiative, where agencies in the Puget Sound are tasked with trying to accommodate an additional almost 1 million people over the next 25 years. It's not just about transportation. Our land use and planning policies also have to accommodate PSRC's Vision 2040, which take a look at additional growth in housing and employment needs, and also to provide access to and from regional centers within the region. There's also the King County countywide planning policies. They shape the framework that local governments must operate within as well. Their policies are established by the Growth Management Planning Council, which consists of elected officials from King County and cities within the county. By the time we begin to evaluate our local comprehensive plan policies, much has already been decided for us and mandated by the state and regional policy. For example, our comprehensive planning must accommodate an additional 3,000 housing units and 5,000 jobs by 2035. After taking into consideration all the policies of the Growth Management Act, the Shorelines Management Act, SEPA, policies of the Puget Sound Regional Council, the King County countywide planning policies, local agencies like Des Moines can adopt a local comprehensive plan which establishes goals, policies, and implementation strategies for the local vision. But it all has to operate within the box of the regional and state policy. So our comprehensive plan was just updated last year. PSRC requires that the comprehensive plans be updated every 7 years. So about the time the light rail station is opening, we'll be going through another update of our comprehensive plan. We also have a couple of other local comprehensive plans, our comprehensive transportation plan, our parks master plan, and our surface water comprehensive plan. These plans provide more specific detail on specific program areas, all of which feeds into the greater city's comprehensive plan. Taking a look at land use and development regulations here, our planning staff interpret the Des Moines Municipal Code and make land use decisions based on the state, regional, and local policy framework. The codes that our planners work with the most are the Environment Code in Title 16, the Subdivision Code in Title 17, and the Zoning Code in Title 18. Our planners also spend a lot of time in support of City Council policy work on these and other codes. Only the City Council can enact ordinances which establish law and are codified in our municipal code. You can go to our web page and access the municipal code. It has all the local zoning and environmental regulations in that. Our land use planners process land use applications based on these codes. There's a variety of ways that decisions are made. There's administrative decisions that staff make. Some decisions go to a hearings examiner, and other decisions can be made by the city council. What is shown here are just examples of the types of decisions that are made. All of the decisions in these categories can be found in the Des Moines Municipal Code. The point that I want to make is if a land use application meets the requirements of the code, a permit application, that permit application is approved, period. Those land use applications can be approved, denied, or approved with conditions. So here's kind of a general flow chart of how land use applications work. In general, we have, well, let's see, everything above the red line is part of our land use planning process. Everything below the red line is part of our building permit application process. I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but generally speaking, we have a pre-app meeting, or if the developer wants to have a pre-app meeting, they can. Eventually, a land use application is submitted. That's reviewed for completeness. We'll go through our environmental review and land use review process, and eventually a decision is made, and both in land use decision and environmental decision through SEPA. Before I transition into talking about our building section, I kind of wanted to point out that the whole community development division is tied to economic development. And no, I'm not going to elaborate too much on the art and science of economic development, but I'd encourage you to take a listen to the City Government 101 presentation made by our Economic Development Manager, Michael Mathias, and that can be found on our city's website. So I'm going to transition here and talk a little bit about our building section. The core function of this group is to review and inspect building construction activities to ensure that the model building codes are followed. The purpose is to address fire and life safety issues for the buildings in our community. Washington State adopts and modifies the model codes, and by law, cities are required to enact and enforce these codes. These include, but are not limited to, the International Building Code, International Fire Code, International Residential Code, and the National Electrical Code. The state also requires that cities verify contractor licensing and permit issuance. The primary intent of building regulation is to provide reasonable controls for the design, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance of buildings within the community. Fire and life safety is priority one. Looking at the recent earthquake in Ecuador and other natural disasters in less developed nations, it's clear that our inspectors must take seriously the responsibility for safety in the construction industry. The goal of the model building codes is to prevent or at least minimize the risk of catastrophic building collapse. So once a land, yes? Sorry.
How many inspectors do you have?
There's 4 individuals in the building section, our building official, and then the other 3 are a combination. They do plan review as well as building inspection. So,
thank you.
So anyway, again, talking about the application process, once a land use application decision has been made through our community planning section, a developer or applicant can submit for a building permit. Once that's done, some of the things that occur is our civil engineering plan review, design review, building plan review, and then eventually a permit is issued. Once that takes place, the required inspections can be scheduled. Those, and as construction is completed, a certificate of occupancy is issued for a building. We work diligently to expedite plan review process whenever possible and to allow such things as deferred submittals or phased permits when we can. We're currently utilizing a rolling review process with the FAA project, and that is going to save the developer months in project delivery time. And this process is something that the developer pays an additional fee for to help expedite the project. They're bringing additional resources to the table to condense the review process time. Sometimes plan review process requires resubmittals until the plans are satisfactory. This process always requires a lot of coordination with the designer and the architect of record. In Des Moines, per our contract with South King Fire and Rescue, our building official acts as the enforcement arm for the fire district. South King Fire and Rescue do review building plans to ensure that adequate fire department access is provided, that there's adequate fire hydrant spacing, and that fire and life safety equipment is provided when necessary, particularly on some of our large commercial projects. The building section also works in unison with all the other city departments, South King Fire and Rescue, and all the utilities within the city to provide safe and well-maintained structures in the city. Before we can issue a permit, we have to get water and sewer availability certificates from the districts. We work with all the other private utility providers and also addressing for the new proposed buildings.
Excuse me, Dan. Does, when it comes to large structures in our city, does our police department get to weigh in on those designs?
Yeah, as part of the plan review process, especially on any large project, starting even in the planning process, they are invited to participate in that process. And so they'll do a CPTED review, crime prevention by.
You know, I said large projects, but I also guess I mean, you know, neighborhood developments and things like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. I'm glad to hear that.
So once all the requirements have been met, the building permit can be issued and construction can begin. Our building staff provides the required inspections per the model building code on large-scale commercial projects like the recently completed Four Points Hotel by Sheraton, and onto small-scale building permits on residential homes. They also provide inspections in spaces that sometimes require some special attire, as shown here for the Green Corps facility, which is now up and running.
And what designer are they wearing?
Yeah.
Carhartt.
Yeah. Our inspectors provide inspections per the approved plans. There are always field modifications that come up, change orders and plan revisions. All of these have to be approved by the engineer of record, reviewed by building staff, and then incorporated into the record drawings for the project. You know, here our inspectors are checking the size, the number, and location of the reinforcing bars on one of the slabs for the hotel that was completed here recently. We do a lot of work, obviously, on residential home construction and remodels. Our inspectors are inspecting to the code requirements of the model codes that I mentioned previously. Those codes establish minimum code requirements. Contractors and developers can always provide or exceed those minimum code requirements, but our authority is to the minimum code and to the approved plans. We are not inspecting for fit and finish on residential home construction in particular. These types of inspections can be provided by third-party inspectors, contracted directly by the building purchaser. So we're not checking to see that your floor is level. That's beyond the scope of the International Building Code. Quality control standards and expectations is something that should be negotiated and included in the purchase and sale agreement between the builder and the purchaser. South King Fire and Rescue also provides inspections on, to ensure that critical communications equipment, sprinkler systems are functional and that appropriate building egress has been provided. Once all of the permit requirements have been completed and signed off by all the appropriate departments and divisions, a certificate of occupancy can be issued. That certificate of occupancy can be withdrawn if later the building is found to be unsafe. I want to talk briefly about insurance rates. All cities in Washington State are reviewed by the Washington Surveying and Ratings Bureau. This rating affects insurance rates that we all pay in our homes and businesses. The criteria used for rating include fire department, water supply, emergency communication systems, and fire safety control. In Des Moines, we are currently rated as Class 3. 1 is the best, 10 is the worst. Last week, we had fire districts in. This is an email that we received recently from Chief Al Church, and you'll see here that the score that we have from our last rating is actually 2.01, and they always round up to the next class. So we're literally 0.1% away from being at a Class 2. There are no Class 1s in the state, and there's currently 4 Class 2s in the state. So we're really close to being able to drop our rating even more. So that'll help on your home insurance rates.
Dan, just to clarify that, in Federal Way, it's South King Fire and Rescue is a Class 2. In Federal Way, it's a Class 2, and the only other ones are Seattle, Bellevue, and Olympia. And Olympia just recently. The City of Des Moines is a Class 3, and there are some things that that the fire district and the city can work on together. So in 5 years, when the re-rate comes back around, that I'm confident that we'll be a Class 2. And what that does for folks is it reflects in your insurance and the insurance premiums that you pay. The lower you go, the better. There are no Class 1s. Class 2 is pretty stellar. So this is the second go-around for the fire department as a Class 2.
Yep, that's great. I want to talk for a couple minutes about our electrical program. The city's electrical program is a benefit to homeowners and contractors doing business here in the city. Our program provides one-stop shop, saving homeowners and consumers time and money. The other alternative is the Department of Labor and Industries. So I kind of want to do a quick comparison to show how we would measure up against the Department of L&I. L&I processes an online permit. The cost is about $250. To schedule an inspection, they give you a 2 to 7 day window. And when they do show up, that's the only inspection that they'll do is an electrical inspection. And that's where we're going to see the biggest difference when you move to a local electrical program like ours. Our process, we also have online permitting, over-the-counter permits, about the same cost, but you can schedule an electrical inspection for the next day, and we'll tell you if we'll be there in the morning or in the afternoon. And when our inspector shows up, if you have other inspections to do at that same time, we can do a plumbing or a mechanical or building permit inspection. And so it helps people when they're taking time off work, they can schedule, take just a half a day off or something like that, and it just provides a better customer service. Our electrical inspectors are highly qualified. They have a lot of experience. Here you can see there's a little dot right there, and that's this guy, Matt Hannum, one of our electrical inspectors, working on the HVAC system for the Green Corps facility. That thing is massive, and so he's in checking out some of the work on that. Our inspectors will also look at components, making sure that they're UL listed properly. We do a lot of residential electrical service inspections, and we've seen it all from the good to the bad and to the ugly. We've found illegal and dangerous and unsafe conditions. This is a sub-panel that's inaccessible and doesn't have the proper coverings on it. We find illegal and unsafe splices in wiring like this. And why this is important is about 80% of residential fires are electrical in nature. So it's really important to have a really solid electrical program, and we do have that here in the city. Just kind of going to some building code enforcement. This is an example of a few homes that lost their certificate of occupancy because the conditions changed. We had a landslide just a little over a year ago, and so these homes lost their certificate, and we've been working with some of these homeowners and their engineers to try to figure out a way to provide some safety here for them. We'll also do look at unpermitted work and dangerous work and provide stop work orders when necessary. I mean, here we've got, you know, a load-bearing wall on top of a railroad tie wall next to a garage. You know, it's really not a safe situation. So we'll do a lot of stop work, looking at unpermitted work. Finally, looking at the third section of community development, our permit center. Our permit center is really the nerve center of City Hall. Staff at the permit center greet all visitors at the only public entrance to City Hall, as well as answer the main phone line for the city. They field all types of questions and comments, whether on the phone or in person. Permit coordinators cover all aspects of building and land use permitting. We have we can get a lot of our permits online right now, which saves a lot of time. You don't even have to come down to City Hall. You can submit your permit online. They'll process commercial and residential building permits, as well as all electrical, mechanical, and plumbing permits. The processing of permits includes fee handling, routing, tracking, records retention. They also administer our community development block grant minor home repair program. They process and issue business licenses. They respond to public records requests, and they field and triage calls and online code enforcement issues. Code enforcement, this position, code enforcement officer position was eliminated in 2016. A lot of the duties have been assigned to other staff throughout the city, and we're really kind of focused in on fire and life safety issues right now. All of our code enforcement concerns can be reported online only. We have a new system to kind of track and triage those complaints. Those come into our permit center and are sent out to the various departments when we have fire and life safety issues. One of the council priorities was to address some of the nuisance properties. Here's an example where we had an old rundown building, and that's now been removed. 15 of those have been resolved. There's currently only 3 left on the list that staff is working on, so that's a lot of good progress. Code enforcement issues are important because it affects our community in a lot of different ways. Property values. I mean, can you imagine living next door to this? Yes. You can almost smell it, and there's health issues that come along with that. All kinds of friendly critters. So again, community development, 10 FTEs. The revenue budget for this section is $1.6 million. And you'll notice that the expenditure budget is far less than that by over $250,000. So we're bringing in more revenue in this division than we're spending. So we have three people in our planning section, 4 in building, and then there's 3 staff at our permit center. You know, on our revenue budget for the year, one of the things that's really interesting is we're actually going to exceed that by a significant amount, because a lot of the work that was scheduled for 2017 has actually been accelerated. So there's a lot going on in town, and that's great. That's great news. One of the things I want to point out specifically is there's no general fund tax revenue supporting the efforts of this division. That's not always going to be the case, but this year at least that's what we have in our budget. So, and then the expenditure budget, you can kind of see some of the different things that if I had to kind of compress it down into some main categories, we do inspections and land use reviews, providing customer service in a variety of ways, working on council policy stuff. So that's some of the ways we spend the revenue that we have, and that concludes the first part of my presentation. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any of that. Or
I have one question for you on the house that had the issue with the slide.
Yes.
So when houses are built, there's a setback in the front, but what about when you're on the edge of the cliff? Is that something that we have input on?
Yeah, there's side yard, rear yard, and front yard setbacks. And something that happened like this would be, this rear yard setback would, they'd be grandfathered into a particular situation. But the issue is that from a building code perspective, they also have to make sure that the foundation, the design that was incorporated as part of that building, that they have to make sure that there's geotechnical support to hold up the foundation. So that's kind of the issue with these buildings, is trying to make sure that there's the foundations of these aren't compromised. Because it literally, on one of the buildings, it's within 5 feet of the foundation of the house, so.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, as far as residential homeowners remodeling specifically, or maybe even new construction, but how many are the actual homeowners doing the work themselves versus hiring out to general contractors? Do you have a kind of an idea? Is it
I wouldn't know.
less than half, more than half?
I'd be afraid to hazard a guess, but I could find out for you.
Yeah.
Larry or Rex would know. They'd probably have a better idea.
And then on the inspections, if a homeowner's trying to do something himself, the inspector comes out and says, you fail the inspection, get it right, and they come out a second or third time, isn't there a point where that homeowner will start getting charged if the inspector has to keep coming out on the same inspection until they get it right? Or do I have that?
Theoretically speaking, yes, we have the ability to do that. We typically will try to do everything we can do to work with the homeowners and builders to try to avoid that. But we've had a few instances where we've had to kind of add some additional inspection fees, but typically we won't do that. But
I just got one thing really quick. When was the last time we had somebody out at those houses right next to Saltwater State Park that were?
I don't know specifically the last time, but I know that our building officials, inspectors make regular trips out there, and they've been in communication with the homeowners and some of their, at least in one case, some of their design professionals, so that we're working on it, but we're still waiting on some of the other buildings to actually get information from the design professionals, and it just isn't coming in, which leads me to believe that perhaps nobody's willing to put their stamp on some of that, so.
I have a concern. I drove through the neighborhood last weekend, and all of the red signs on the doors have been taken down, and there's several for sale signs in the yards. So.
Okay. Take a look.
Yeah, one more thing, Dan. We kind of mentioned this in the Environment Committee meeting tonight. So if a person wants to build a home on a lot, they have to get a certificate of water and sewer availability. If there is no sewer available, nowhere to hook up, do we even allow the construction of brand-new septic systems and drain fields in city limits?
Yes.
Okay.
That is something that is allowed.
And that's through public health?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Within the shoreline?
Perhaps. There certainly would be additional environmental reviews to go through if that were the case. All right. So this is the second part of my presentation, and this will address the Engineering Services Division. Again, here's the kind of the depiction of the org chart, and just to, again, quickly go through this. We've got four divisions: our Administration Division, Community Development, our Public Works and Park Maintenance, and then what I'm going to be talking about here, the next few slides, is our Engineering Services Division. So this division, there's currently 3 sections. We have our Transportation Engineering Services Manager. There's our Surface Water and Environmental Engineering Services Manager, Lauren Reinhold. Brandon's here, our Transportation Engineer. And then our Capital Improvement Program, which kind of sits in the middle because both of these, surface water and transportation, both have capital projects, and Scott Romano, our capital projects manager helps manage all of that. We'll also utilize a lot of outside consultant resources in this division, particularly because on some of these larger capital improvement projects, we just don't have the ongoing resources to have a complete engineering, full-blown engineering department here at the city. We'll have a big capital project one year, and then it might be 2 years, and we don't have anything. So we've kind of got the right mix, at least it feels like to me, of where we have in-house design that we'll do, and then use a lot of outside support for some of these larger projects. So there's 11 FTEs in this division. The first section I'm going to talk about is transportation engineering services. The primary functions and responsibility, we'll go over those functions, dealing a lot with kind of emergency management, traffic operations and safety, and then some of the secondary functions that they'll do, capital improvement, development services, and the like. This section's first and foremost priority is traffic operations and safety. This city operates a complex transportation system with a wide variety of users. We have some 30,000 residents that live in the city, hundreds of businesses, and hundreds of thousands of vehicle trips every day that come through our city. We have pedestrian bicycle users, transit users. Case law establishes a lot of what our duty is as a city, and I'm going to read this. Cities are obligated to exercise ordinary care to maintain its infrastructure in a reasonably safe condition for persons using them in a proper manner and exercising due care for their own safety. Notice that this duty doesn't say that we have to provide safe infrastructure for every circumstance or situation. I'm going to refer back to this in a couple minutes. So how do we fulfill this duty? Do a lot of engineering analysis. We'll do a lot of performance evaluation. In other words, is the infrastructure operating as it was originally intended or designed? We do in order to do that, we do a lot of data gathering from a lot of sources, staff, sources, council, citizens. We'll do traffic counts and collect crash data. Here are just a few of the authoritative documents that provide standards and guidelines that we must follow in the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of the city's infrastructure. Each of these manuals are regularly updated and can be found in our engineering library. They're all about 3 inches thick. A lot of boring reading for most people, but our engineers kind of just love reading this stuff. Yeah. State laws, the RCWs and WACs also provide, and case law also provide a framework for decision making. Take, for example, the rules of the road that we all learned when we went through driver's ed. These documents are just a representative example, but they're the hallmark documents that we often refer to. You'll hear us talk a lot about the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. This manual sets forth how we can use traffic control devices like our signs, signals, striping, markings, and the like. The AASHTO Green Book. This is used in the design of roadways, sidewalks, bike lanes, and trails. So as we do a lot of data gathering, we'll do traffic counts. We'll look at collision analysis from all of our crash reports and trying to make some decisions about particular crash trends and things like that. We take a lot of input from citizens. Here is a quick chart that'll show some of the accident trends that we have throughout the city. We typically have between 250 and 300 collisions a year on average in the city. We did see a slight dip here between 2008 and 2012 or so, and we think in large part this is due to the recession when traffic volumes dropped significantly, so there's a lot of less conflict points and things like that. But
Dan, on some of the studies that are actually for state routes that happen to be city streets also, like 99 or State Route 516, does the state do those studies, or do we? Or Okay.
They may do them as well, but those are city streets, and so we'll be looking at those. So, over the last 8 years, we've had 1,942 reported crashes in the city, and here's kind of a breakdown of those crashes. Of the fatal crashes that we had, half of them involved alcohol. Another one was reckless driving. What's disturbing about collision trends nationwide is regarding impaired driving, including texting and driving, is showing that in reality, texting and driving is as bad, if not worse, than driving drunk. So just don't do it, or you're going to meet our guys in blue. Another primary function is infrastructure management. Our engineering services group manages all the operation and maintenance activities. So while the maintenance crew does a lot of the field work, it's directed and managed by our engineering folks. Our engineers decide where traffic control devices go. They get to decide when they get to be moved or removed. The authority of the traffic engineer is established in state law. In the city traffic engineer is the only one with the authority to place traffic control devices. So we coordinate and manage all the work out in the field for striping, crosswalk markings, sign placement, things like that. We've got just over 4,000 traffic signs, 15,000 feet of guardrail that we're managing, 75 miles of striping.
So Dan, is the majority of that done in-house, or do you contract that work out as well?
We contract with King County for our roadway striping, and we have a traffic control specialist that his primary duties is to manage and track all of the traffic control devices. So we'll do all the sign work in-house. We don't manufacture the signs. We'll purchase them from a third party, but we'll do all the markings work ourselves. But the striping work is done by King County. Our traffic signal work, we contract with WashDOT. Here was a traffic signal cabinet replacement. The computer equipment in this cabinet's, from the late 80s, I think, when we finally pulled this a couple of years ago. So anyway, we work with WashDOT quite a bit on cabinet maintenance, all our signal maintenance. When you pull up to the traffic signal, most of the time it knows that you're there because there's a loop in the road. And so sometimes those have to be replaced. We have 20 traffic signals in the city. We've got 17 other electronic devices that have to be timed and coordinated. And we've got just about 1,800 street lights in the city as well. Probably our most valuable asset is our street pavement. It's to replace it. It's well over $100 million. Many of you on the council have probably seen this chart before. It's our pavement condition index over time. If you haven't seen it before, you're going to see it here soon. The idea is a brand new pavement gets a score of 100. A completely failed road gets a 0. And the idea is we want to be able to maintain our roads up in this kind of area here of this curve where 40% of the design life is lost over 75%, the first 75%. The next 40% is lost in the next 12% of the design life. So if you let your pavement get past this point, it deteriorates very rapidly. And so our goal is to try to maintain pavements up here. So we spend a lot of time looking at pavements. We haven't been able to do a lot of overlays recently.
And that last slide, for public benefit, I see on the right side of that. So you're saying that you're having that's the dollar value per square foot to replace?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
So
costs go up exponentially.
Yeah, when you look at how fast the decline is, also look at how fast the cost accelerates. Yep. And I think, that's very telling right there. You're at $4 $4 a square foot to maintain as long as you're above 70%, but then you drop and it instantly goes to 20. The next threshold's 48, and then you're up to 146. That's a very powerful slide. Thank you.
We just recently increased our transportation benefit district fees to be able to do some overlay and pavement work. Over the next couple of weeks, you might see a truck looking like this. They're actually doing some pavement ratings for us that are going to help us update the scores on our pavement, and it helps us decide where we can invest that money to maximize the use of that resource, make it stretch the dollar as far as we can. We own and maintain 3 bridges in the city. The state owns and maintains the bridge at Marine View Drive here at the north end of the Marina District. We are required to regularly inspect all of our bridges, and those inspection reports are filed and must be maintained in the office of the city engineer. During our inspections, we'll monitor and review deficiencies that we know. I mean, when you have a crack in a bridge strut like this, that's never a good thing. I will report that this has been repaired. And all of our bridges at this point have been seismically retrofitted, which is pretty exciting. We've been working on that for a number of years. Another primary function of our engineering staff is they respond and direct and manage all public works related emergency activities. They're essentially on call 24/7, 365. You know, this emergency happened in 2014 on Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, we had people come back from hunting trips, from trips with families in order to help kind of get this dealt with that night. We also do a lot of information as it relates to storm tracking and winter events. You can go on the website, and if we got a snow event in town, we'll have our snow tracker up, and you can see where our crews have been plowing the streets and doing de-icing and when they'll be back. We also have several traffic cams around the city. You can go on the website and look at those traffic cams. And just wrapping up kind of the primary functions of what these engineers do, it's really all about protecting the city from lawsuits and claims. I've got 3 things that I tell my staff. Number 1, you got to keep the city from being sued. You can't always do that, so when we are sued, you better win. And the other one is I want you to treat the infrastructure that you're maintaining like it's yours, like you own it. The point is, it's our money. And when I say that, I'm not saying it's the city's money. It's our money. It's your money. You're the taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. Everything that's out there in the street, it's ours. We pay the bill when there's a lawsuit or a claim as taxpayers. So I demand that our employees, that your employees, be good stewards of your resources. We can't always make sure that the public's infrastructure is 100% safe 100% of the time, nor are we required to do that. To do so would be astronomically expensive, and as taxpayers, we just couldn't afford it. If you recall the city's duty under case law, we have to provide reasonably safe infrastructure for reasonably safe conditions employed by the user. So we apply common sense using the framework of established standards and guidelines. If we didn't, we'd all look like this goofball. So how are we doing? So here's a quick table that shows our claim loss report for the last 6 years, I think. And as a department, our claim loss history is under $24,000. Engineering services specifically is under $4,500. And I remember specifically this one was related to a reckless driving case where we had a fatality. It wasn't anything that we did, but it was just in being prepared to defend that particular lawsuit, we hired some help on that particular thing. As a department, I can tell you with certainty that this loss rate is by far one of the lowest in the state of Washington for similar cities. I want to quickly move on to some of the secondary functions that we do. We do a lot of capital work, obviously development review services, and we do a lot of work on special events. I'm going to defer the capital work discussion to the end of the presentation where I can talk about all of the work that we do together. Our staff review and inspect transportation and access improvements for new and redevelopment projects, both commercial and development, residential. They review traffic impact studies, traffic impact fee reports, civil plan reviews, and you do a lot of utility coordination on development projects. We'll do a lot of field inspections and make corrections where we need to. This is particularly important because we have a developer who's building infrastructure that we're going to inherit. It becomes ours, so it's critical that we make sure that it's built properly and to the right standards. We do a lot of work on special events, 4th of July event, the Waterland Parade, bonfire events. All of these come in through special event permits, and they take a lot of time and coordination and a lot of traffic control management. We work closely with the special event applicant, with the police department, and sometimes our businesses, especially in the downtown. There's a lot of coordination that goes on with the utilities that we have in the city. This can include franchise agreements and right-of-way permit administration. What's difficult for Des Moines is that we have 3 different sewer districts, 3 different water districts, and having multiple districts like this adds to the complexity and the time it takes to do utility coordination. We have both public and private utilities. Public are water and sewer utilities. Private are things like gas, power, cable, internet, phone, and all these are operating in our right-of-way. A lot of coordination with agencies as well. We have 5 neighboring cities. We have 3 state routes that go through Des Moines, 509, 516, and SR 99. And we're also doing a lot of coordination work on the upcoming extension of the 509 freeway out to I-5. That's taking a lot of time. There's a lot of work that we do with permitting agencies like the Department of Ecology, FEMA, Army Corps of Engineers, and also our tribes. We have 2 different school districts in town, Highline and Federal Way. We also do a lot of coordination work with Highline College. We also have several private schools in town, so our engineering staff work closely with the schools to set up school zone safety, crossing guard operations. We provide ongoing coordination with King County Metro and Sound Transit. We're trying to get expanded service in Des Moines, or at least prevent further loss of service from Metro at times. We're spending a lot of time right now actively working with Sound Transit on the design and extension of Link Light Rail to the college. It's currently scheduled to open in 2023, and they'll have a record of decision probably by the end of the year on the alignment and station locations, so that's moving along very rapidly. And from time to time, we also get to work on passenger-only ferry service. It's been a while since that has come up, but every now and again that comes up, working with the King County Ferry District. We also do a lot of coordination with committees, several organizations throughout the state, from staying informed on developing issues, potential state law changes, liability exposure. It's necessary for engineering staff to maintain strong relationships with various organizations that may have impact on our transportation issues at the city level. We'll do our planning work, so we have our comprehensive transportation plan where we look at the whole network of the city. That informs our transportation improvement plan that we adopt every year, and that informs our 6-year capital improvement plan. We also have a lot of work that we do in Title 12 of the Municipal Code dealing with city streets, and we'll update our street, we maintain our street design and construction standards. So that kind of concludes the Transportation Engineering Services section. Their budget's about $930,000. A huge portion of that comes from capital improvement projects that we work on. There's development review projects. In kind of a big picture kind of a way, I'm just rounding the numbers, but we have some general fund support for this division, which makes sense given that what our primary duty actually is. So there's 5 FTEs. We have Brandon, Andrew, Dave, Tommy, and Kai, who put together the little movie at the beginning. So, and this kind of shows you generally where this group is spending that revenue. Capital improvement projects, those are the same. Development review, those are kind of the same puzzle pieces. And then right-of-way inspections, citizen concerns, and then just kind of coordinating our street maintenance operations. The next section I'm going to talk about is our surface water utility and environmental engineering group. Their primary function is protecting the environment and maintaining our NPDES permit. I'll talk about that in a minute. They also do a lot of capital work and development services. The first, as I said, the first priority is protecting the environment. So this little chart is a little hard to see, but you can see the creeks that we have in town. I mean, here's Des Moines Creek, here's Massey Creek and Barnes Creek, here's McSorley Creek, both forks of that, Woodmont Creek, Redondo Creek, and Cold Creek. And each of the basins that are shown here kind of in the yellow color. All of our storm drainage system connects to those creeks or directly to the Puget Sound. So when you see these stickers, you might see these drainage markers out on the catch basins in the street. It literally does mean that Puget Sound starts here. Everything that ends up in that drainage catch basin is going to end up in one of those creeks and in the Puget Sound. We've all heard about the impacts to fish, freshwater and saltwater fish. Fish like this live in our streams and waters, and we're required to protect them. So we do a lot of work to prevent things like this, an illicit and illegal discharge where, you know, this guy's dumping his chemicals out right into our ditch. And so luckily we had one of our staff was driving around and snapped a picture, so we were able to follow up and had a little visit with this company here. Sometimes there's accidental discharges, you know, things happen sometimes. We'll have oil spills or hydraulic spills, so we'll do our best to clean those up at the source, but then also put absorption things right at kind of the last point where these creek drainages enter the sounds. And sometimes we just have unintentional discharges into our creek systems. I mean, you wouldn't think about going down to the beach and washing your car, but that's exactly what you're doing when the soap suds go down the drain. So some of our big car wash events that we do have car wash kits that we have. I think we have about 6 or 8 of them. You can call Ken Thomas at 206-870-6585 if you're doing a fundraiser. You can come in, check one of these kits out for free, and it helps pump the water out to a grassy area where it'll infiltrate directly. We do a lot of work informing, educating the public, and coordinating outreach events to clean up the creek basins. And we do all this because of our NPDES permit. NPDES is National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. I'm not going to walk through all the components of that because I've kind of talked to some of that, but this permit is what allows the city to discharge stormwater into the waters of the state, like the creeks and streams in Puget Sound. Without this permit, we would not be able to do that. So we have to make sure that we're preventing pollution from entering these creeks by helping inform people, doing things like the car wash kits, storm drainage marker program, and then a lot of maintenance activities about cleaning out our catch basins and things like that, and street sweeping, which I'm going to talk about specifically here. So we do a lot of work to control surface water runoff from our streets and impervious areas. We control these, and goes from ditches down further drainages and eventually down, you know, here, this Des Moines Creek. So eventually everything kind of ends up working its way down the system. We do a lot of maintenance, maintaining our storm ponds and detention vaults. You know, there's 2 ways we can detain water. I mean, sometimes you'll see, you know, detention ponds out in the neighborhoods. What you don't see is under the street we have detention vaults, and this is actually a control structure that's here. The vault is what he's coming out of. And so we have to get in and clean those out from time to time. We also do a lot of work to maintain treatment facilities like bioswales. We're going to see more and more of those as we go through LID.
Dan, on the water retention systems, on new developments, when they're required to put in a system for a bunch of houses, the contractor builds it, and then does that homeowners association have to maintain that, or does the city then take over the ongoing inspections and maintaining those water retention ponds?
Depends.
Okay.
If it's a public system, we take it over, they'll build it, and then we take it over. If it's a private system, then there's also responsibilities that the property owners have to maintain that as well. So here, this is an oil water separator, so we have some of these where you got to replace these filters every so often. We also do a lot to control and manage flooding. We did a lot. This happened several years ago. That's the dining hall. So we've actually dealt with that and raised the building. And this is out on 24th where we've got an inadequate drainage system. And so it just, once it reaches capacity, the water comes out. So we've got a project to kind of deal with that. Another function is infrastructure management. I mentioned it before on the transportation side, but we also have a lot of assets that have to be managed and tracked and maintained. I mean, we've got 5,000 catch basins throughout the city, 46 detention vaults, 16 ponds. So there's a lot of work that goes into kind of keeping these operating properly. Kind of moving on to secondary functions. Again, this group does a lot of capital projects, and I'm going to defer this again and talk at the end of this. But, this is a huge detention vault that they're building. This was under Pack Highway as part of the redevelopment project there. And so that's basically under the sidewalk in the HOV lane that's up there. You can even see it. Do a lot of development services. They review technical information reports to make sure that development projects are designed in accordance with the King County Surface Water Design Manual. They review construction activities, make sure that the new drainage systems and facilities are constructed to standards and approved plans. Because again, we're going to take these over and maintain them when they're done. A lot of coordination with agencies, kind of some different agencies that SWIM coordinates with. All of these agencies have a say-so in how our facilities are built. And we have to get permits from a lot of these different agencies. Some of these agencies are tasked with different functions, but and we can get grants from organizations like WIRA 9, King County Flood Control District, King Conservation District. Do a lot of planning in SWIM as well. We have our comprehensive plan that we do. A lot of the surface water utility codes are in Title 11, so they'll spend, Lauren and his group kind of work on that group there. As I mentioned, we're currently looking at updating or implementing low impact development standards, which is part of our MPDS permit requirements through the Department of Ecology. What's that? It's something we're currently working on, so it's something that has to be adopted before the end of the year. Just going to go over a couple of common misunderstandings that we hear quite a bit. Surface water, there's private property and surface water issues. City does not manage surface water on private properties. We're managing surface water that's from impervious surfaces like streets, roads, parking facilities, things like that. Groundwater problems that come up from time to time. I mean, we get a lot of calls, hey, you got to come out and fix this. And it's like, well, it's not, this isn't a surface water issue, this is a groundwater issue. So we get those quite a bit. We have quite a few easements that we operate in, and easements don't imply ownership. It just gives us the right to access that area to maintain our facility, but the ownership is with the underlying property. So here's kind of the budget for this group. There's 5 FTEs, about $1.2 million budget. One of the things I want to point out is the expenditure for this particular department is utility taxes. The utility taxes are paid and accounted for out of this particular budget, so those are taxes that are paid to local governments. And all of the fees that come in here, there's a small part of general fund. I mean, Lauren and his group do some work on utility work and things like that, that is general funded in nature. But by and large, this is restricted revenue that's generated by the surface water management utility. On quickly to the capital improvement program, we've got several different funds that we manage, transportation projects, swim projects, municipal capital projects, and our facility repair and replacement fund. All these projects have different phases that we work through, planning and preliminary design, right-of-way acquisition, final design engineering, and you have contract procurement and bidding, and then we have to make sure it's built right through construction management and inspection. To the extent that we can, we will do as much of that work with in-house resources, staff resources, but there's a balance there based on the size of the project and other work that's going on. And so a lot of the bigger projects, as I mentioned, we'll use consultant support for that. Talk a little bit about grant funding. On the federal side, there's a list here of the various types of grants that we can go after that are all federal funded. All of these grants require a minimum of 13.5% match, and they all come with a lot of red tape, but that's what, you got to accept the red tape if you want the money. So some of the main grants that we use a lot are at the STP grants. We get those. We get some FEMA grants. FHWA provided money for the boardwalk repairs. There's the Safe Routes to School funding and our bridge funding. Those are some examples. Unfortunately, the deck is stacked against us. Agencies like these have dedicated full-time staff that are specifically devoted to work on grants. They sit on advisory committees at the state and regional level, and they frame policy and set award criteria. When the grant cycles come around, many times local agencies like Des Moines struggle to compete for the limited resources. I was going to kind of tally up the numbers from this last grant call, but they kind of take a lot of it. Brandon kind of referred to it as kind of stepping into the boxing ring against, some of the greats, and you're walking right into a left hook. It's no fun. State grants, just really quickly, there's a laundry list of stuff here. These are much better grants to get because the red tape is gone, but you usually have to provide more of a local match to get some of these, in particular TIB, to be competitive for that kind of grant. You better come to the table with 30, 40% match, and that makes the project much more appealing to these granting agencies to support. So where does our local match come from? We have traffic impact fees, in lieu fees from developers. Our fuel tax could be used. Transportation benefit district money could be used. Real estate excise tax could be used. This all provides leverage to get those grant awards. The Gateway project, which we're just wrapping up, or our last phase is currently under construction. It's a $20 million project. I think by the time that we're all said and done, I'll be surprised if we have $2 million of local money into that project. So we were able to leverage a lot of other local sources of funding to get a much bigger return.
Quick question.
Yes.
You said we're on the last phase of the Gateway project. What about there's a strip?
Yes.
Okay.
So
you know what
I say last phase,
Help
I'm
me out.
saying the current 3 phases that we have. There is a segment of the Gateway project proper that's east of Pacific Highway between there and I-5 that at some point we'll have to deal with.
I was also talking about the one that's around 14th or 16th.
So that is outside the Gateway project, but there'll be one piece of South 216th Street between, we'll call it 11th and about 18th. And so we're currently working on that to try to get some funding for that, and we'll see where we go. But that's a project that's in our 6-year CIP to try to get funding for.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we have certified agency authority through WashDOT, which is a big savings to us. It allows us to administer our own federally funded projects, mainly because we have qualified staff, we have licensed professional engineers, we have people with experience using the local agency guideline manual and fitting in and working within the red tape. So if we lose that authority, then we lose the ability to manage our own projects and the costs go up. It'll cost us more. So we've had pretty good success delivering some pretty big projects. I mean, you've seen this picture enough. We've had the bridge project, our Gateway project, our Pacific Highway South project from several years ago. And the Redondo Boardwalk project is shaping up to be another award-winning, successful project. We've had some hiccups out there, but it's going along pretty well now. So here's a list of all the capital projects that we have. There's 17 currently active projects that we're working on. All of the projects have to be administered with the standard specifications for road, bridge, and annual construction. This is kind of all of the contractors and all of the agencies use this for contracting purposes, and WashDOT and APWA regularly update that manual. So we have one FTE that kind of manages a lot of this capital work, along with Brandon and Andrew and Lauren. The interesting thing is our grants in our $14 million capital budget, about 66% state, federal, and county grants, about $9.5 million. We have about $4.7 million in local funding sources. I'm going to show you where those are coming from, but 100% of this is restricted revenue. I mean, you can't take a state grant here and take that money and go do some operating expense with that. It has to be dedicated to a specific project that it was awarded to. So this kind of represents where our local match is coming from for this year. So we've got quite a bit coming from SWIM, our automated speed enforcement, there's some here, our Fund 506 facility replacement repair, and a big chunk of that's going to the field house roof replacement. We got some real estate excise tax. This is helping to fund the boardwalk. That's kind of part of our match, amongst other things. We get contributions from utilities. We can actually use that money to leverage and go get more grant funding, so we're able to do that sometimes. In lieu fees, these are fees that are paid by a developer, and then we build part or a portion of the project. We have traffic impact fees, and then some from our transportation capital fund. So that's kind of where our local match is coming from. And if I can, if I can invest $1 and get $3 back, I'll do that all day long. So that's essentially what you see when, when you're looking at this budget here, where, we're getting a pretty good rate on our return of our investment. So that wraps up part 2.
Well, we got to keep the train rolling. You got 25 minutes. You gonna be able to do it?
I think I can do it.
Should have had beer with our popcorn. Just
This is the third part of our Government 101 series of Planning, Building, Public Works, and this will be talking specifically about our Public Works and Park Maintenance Division. As I mentioned earlier, we have 5 sections in this group. We've got our Fleet Maintenance Division, Swim Maintenance, Streets, Parks, and Facility Maintenance. There's 17 FTEs in this group. We also utilize a lot of contracted maintenance services. We talked about a few of them earlier: traffic signals, street lighting, things like that, landscape maintenance. I'm going to talk first about our fleet maintenance group. We've got 151 vehicles in our fleet. We've got about 34 police cars, 10 different kinds of mowers, 16 different pickups and flatbeds. We've 140 gasoline-powered motors and about 10 diesel. The replacement value of our fleet right now is about $8.1 million. So our crew manages all of that. We've got small tools and equipment that they manage, our chainsaws, blowers, trimmers, and things like that. We've got about 40 pieces of equipment that need some work from time to time. We've got our maintenance shop that's located right here on City Hall campus. We've got 4 vehicle bays. It's kind of a typical shop that you'd see. We can do all kinds of services. We've got welders and brake lathes and tire balancing equipment, diagnostic equipment, things like that. We do a lot of oil changes, fluid checks, brakes, tire rotations, all the stuff you'd normally see in a mechanic shop.
Dan, do we got our own fueling station for all the vehicles?
Yes, we do.
Is that up on 24th or?
Yeah, it's up at our Public Works
Okay.
yard. So I'm going to talk, just really quickly, give you an example of some of the benefits of having our own maintenance crew. You know, you've all heard, you know, change your oil every 3 months or 3,000 miles, whichever occurs first. So typically, you know, you're changing your oil 4 times a year. You know, Jiffy Lube pricing at, what, $30 an oil change, you know, that's $120 per year per vehicle. So we've got 151 vehicles. That's $18,000 in just oil changes every year that's happening. We've got 600 sets of brakes that have to be maintained, adjusted, and replaced, repaired. We've got 650 tires that have to be rotated, balanced, inspected. It's windshield wipers, it's turn signals, it's headlights, all the stuff. It's pretty convenient for the police officers or public work crew to just swing into the shop and get a quick repair and back out on the street.
So Dan, quick question. Do you have a maintenance management system that allows you to know when and what has to be done?
Yes, we do. We're kind of shifting that over to our CityWorks maintenance management system. That'll provide a much better process for us, but we do have a way to know when it's time to do those routine maintenance checks.
Okay.
So you mentioned the fuel system. It's up at our Public Works yard. We go through 55,000 gallons of unleaded fuel every year from that, and we go through 10,000 gallons of diesel every year.
And we're buying that cheaper than we could get at a gas station.
Yes, we can buy that wholesale. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's quite a bit of fuel that has to be managed and tracked and things like that. One of the cool things about our fleet, our mechanic, is that he's a certified forklift trainer and also a CDL trainer. So when we have crews that have to be trained to get a CDL license, he can provide that here. And sometimes we get employees from other cities that actually pay us to provide that training for them. So that's helpful. We spend a lot of time when we get new police cars in, setting up those vehicles. I mean, there's a lot of equipment in these things. We got computers, we got radios, transponders, GPS, you know, stuff in the trunk you don't even see, the light bars. It takes a lot of time to set up every one of these police cars. We're able to do that work in-house. Okay, sometimes we can't fix everything, but we do a lot of third-party repairs, and, you know, this vehicle was totaled, and so we'll coordinate kind of getting that surplused and dealt with.
Do you brand your vehicles in-house too, or do you send that?
We do all that work in-house, yes. So there's our crew. We have 1.4 FTEs that manage all of that work. That's kind of ridiculous. We've got about a $500,000 budget, which a big chunk of that is fuel. I mean, almost $200,000 in fuel for all citywide, except the marina. And so here's kind of where the sources of revenue that come from to each of the departments kind of pay in based on the number of vehicles that they have to fund this operation. So that's kind of where the sources of funding are coming from to pay for that. So, okay, moving on to swim maintenance. We saw this map a few minutes ago that kind of reminding everybody Puget Sound starts at the catch basin. Everything that goes into the basin ends up in the Puget Sound. And so we're trying to prevent the wrong kinds of things going into those catch basins as much as we can. Our crews do a lot of work on asset management. I mean, here's kind of an image from our CityWorks program that shows, you know, the catch basins, and it shows which way the pipe is flowing and detention ponds and stuff like that. And so they're able to track all this stuff. It pops up when they're supposed to do an inspection, so they know when to go out and take a look at a particular thing. We do a lot of work to clean out catch basins. I mean, here we got a catch basin that's full of debris. We got needs repair. We've got an illegal, something coming into the side of this. We use our flush truck. It's a great big vacuum cleaner that can suck all this stuff out. It's kind of the flagship of our fleet. This is about a $350,000 piece of equipment that gets used just about every day. That's it right there. Yeah. We do a lot of ditch maintenance to kind of keep the ditches working properly. That's part of the surface water function. Do a lot of maintaining our ponds and treatment facilities, mowing, getting the grass just at the right height, and also dealing with our control structures, making sure those are operating properly. We talked a little bit ago about detention vaults. These have to be inspected, maintained, and cleaned. We try to, we do a lot of stuff with street sweeping to catch stuff before it goes down the drain, whether it's leaves and stuff. And, I see this sign every now and again at state parks and the outlets or campgrounds and things like that. And same principle applies here. Don't put stuff down there that shouldn't go, because it's really hard to get in and get this stuff out of there, whether it's garbage or leaves and things like that. But in reality, what we're trying to do with the street sweeper is to catch gravels and stuff from entering the pipe, but also heavy metals, things like copper, magnesium. When you drive on the street and hit your brakes, the dust is coming off, it's landing on the streets. We're trying to pick that stuff up because that kills fish. So that's a big part of our street sweeping program. We do our residential pipe program where we partner with homeowners to kind of fill in the ditches, and so we'll put in a pipe and we kind of split the costs on some of that work. We do a lot of utility locates. We got a lot of, 18 miles of stuff under the ground. So we're part of the One Call program. We do about 1,130 locates every year. That's 4 or 5 a day where we've got to go out, locate the stuff, and mark it. If we don't mark it and somebody digs it up, we pay to fix it. So we take that pretty seriously. WashDOT does our locates for our traffic signal loops and conduits and things like that. We've got our CMP inspection and replacement program. That's the underside of the road. There used to be a pipe here, a 36-inch diameter pipe, and it's completely deteriorated and gone. This was actually the Redondo problem that we had a few years ago. It's supposed to look like that. So we're inspecting all the pipes, trying to be proactive about replacing those pipes. Do a lot of storm response, clearing up clogged leaves that cause flooding, or working towards replacing pipes that are of insufficient size to deal with the water flow. So here's kind of the swim group. We've got 6.6 FTEs in this group. We currently have 1 vacancy. Again, all the revenue that supports this is restricted revenue. It comes from utility taxes that people pay for surface water bill. And then just in general, kind of how we would spend a lot of this money. A lot of it goes to basin and cleaning and repairs and pond maintenance and, the detention ponds and things like that. Moving on to street maintenance quickly. You've heard me talk a lot about asset management. The public assets are expensive to replace, and each of them serve a specific purpose, and probably no greater source than right here in street maintenance. If you take, for example, a typical traffic sign, an average replacement cost of $75 a piece, I mean, we have over $300,000 of traffic signs, and that doesn't include the labor to put it up. If we had to replace all that, that's pretty extensive. So we need to know exactly where they're at. We inspect them regularly, we clean them, and things like that. Pavement management, we do a lot of crack sealing. We do a lot of crack sealing. And hopefully we'll get to do more of this here soon. We're working towards that.
Dan, do we do our own potholes, or do we?
Yeah, we'll fill potholes and do some of those repairs. Coordinate our traffic signal maintenance. Again, we've got 20 traffic signals have to be maintained. A couple of years ago, we replaced all of our street lights with LED street lights, and that provided an annual savings of about $45,000 a year. That process is complete. There's mixed feelings about how the light changes have occurred, but that's a big number. So that we've been able to experience some good savings there. A lot of work goes into traffic control device maintenance and things like that. Our street crew does a lot of work on vegetation control, whether it's for sight distance or danger trees or just trees that fall down across the trail. There's a lot of work that goes into cleaning up vegetation. We do partner with Recology Cleanscapes. I don't know if we'll be able to do it this year, but we've done some litter pickups on the weekend. We don't spend a ton of time doing this, but we do fill in when we can and pick up litter. And we do a lot of this, and it really stinks. It's no fun to go pick up somebody's pet, but that's something that has to happen, and our street guys do that work. We do a lot of winter storm response, plowing. We now have de-icing equipment that we'll use, or anti-icing on some of our primary emergency response routes. We'll do emergency response route response. Here we had an individual blow right through our fence. Of course, the boardwalk repairs from a couple of years ago. So we've got 4 FTEs. One, Anthony's our traffic control specialist. That's kind of his core function. And then when those duties are complete, he can help the rest of the crew with other things. So a big chunk of this, if not all of it, is also restricted revenue. So the funding that comes to street maintenance comes from your motor vehicle fuel tax. So when you fill up at the pump, we get a portion of that back. It all goes right here to fund street maintenance. Our transportation benefit district revenues, solid waste utility revenues, parking taxes. So a big chunk of this is restricted as well. And in general, this the one thing I would show you is we still spend about $300,000 a year in just electricity for streetlights. That's a big number. Moving on to parks, we do quite a bit of work in the parks. Obviously, we've got about 130 acres of park space and open space. We've got 31 specific parks, 7 playgrounds, ball fields, skate parks, tennis courts, soccer fields, drinking fountains. All has to be checked, maintained, and repaired from time to time. We've got schedules for the types of things that we do every day to check on our parks, and then we've got weekly things that we do, mowing and trimming and things like that during the peak periods. We do a lot of work inspecting our playgrounds, and mainly this is for safety. We do this every day because a lot of times we find stuff like this, and this is the photo that I can actually show you here. We find all kinds of stuff there that has to be picked up and dealt with so that kids don't come in during the day and have to deal with that. And believe it or not, there is no poop fairy. So we have dog bags all over the place. We go through about 50,000 dog bags every year. And that helps make our parks and open spaces more enjoyable, but also helps kind of our surface water NPDES permit requirements as well. So we do a lot of work on drinking fountain, hardscape repair, painting, fences and things like that. A lot of work goes in on field preps, Stephen J. Underwood Park, the Field House Park. We line the fields for the field rentals every other week. We do a lot of mowing and aerating and things like that. These fields get used constantly. In fact, I mean, we've heard nothing but great things about Stephen J. Underwood Park. And I mean, it's really a destination for softball leagues and things like that. And also, you know, our little kids that playing soccer, we do a lot of the setups and preps for the soccer events in the summer. This crew spends a lot of time irrigation repair and maintenance. We've got 23 systems. They get broken, they get damaged, and so there's a lot of work on that. And then we're also working to have to go out and make sure the clocks are set right so that we're not watering too much and things like that. Do a lot of work on landscape maintenance at some specific parks. We do all the landscaping maintenance here at Stephen J. Underwood Park. Apply bark to flower beds. Do a lot of tree trimming and removal throughout the city as well. They provide a lot of support for special events. and they maintain the trails and things like that. So we got 3 people that do all of that work. All of that work is essentially general funded. There's a really small sliver that we do get from field rentals and things like that, but a lot of the revenue that comes from that is actually in a different part of the budget. So, so that kind of shows where the revenue comes from and generally kind of where we spend it. Playground inspection, ball field setup. We do have our NLS contract for landscape maintenance on specific parks.
Dan, how often do we rebid that contract? Because did we put that in place in 2011?
No, it's sooner than that. We actually I think we just
redid it? Okay.
And we're spending $55,000 a year just to keep parks watered?
Yeah, our water bill is, and that's down because we
reduced it in the last budget.
Irrigation back, but yeah, we spend quite a bit on water, just in irrigation. And that's not just at the parks, but there's other places that goes. But anyway. The last section, almost done, appreciate you bearing with me, is our facility maintenance. We have 24 buildings that we have to maintain. I've shown 9 of them here. All of these facilities are open to the public in one form or another. And as you can imagine, you know, that presents all kinds of problems. There's a lot of wear and tear. To give you some general statistics that I think everyone can relate to, we maintain 60 toilets, 20 urinals. I mean, if you have a house, you know, you can't imagine how that would be. We had 74 sinks that we maintain and 2,650 lighting fixtures. That's a lot of light bulbs. So we do some daily work. We don't do this stuff every day, but a lot of door lock and door closure issues, some carpentry work and things like that. We'll do a lot of work with IT and the card lock systems. We've got the 2 gates at the Police Service Center and the Public Works Service Center. Those need to be addressed from time to time. We do monthly checks on all our safety equipment, fire extinguishers, exit signing, first aid kits, eye wash stations. Those have to be checked every month and reported. Yearly, we have to go through all the fire extinguishers, make sure they're recertified, check the water heaters, on and on and on. Cleaning the gutters at our buildings. So here's just some examples of water heaters and some of the fire equipment. I think this is at the dining hall. Electrical panels, HVAC systems. We do a lot of contract support with this division, so we'll have HVAC contract we've got with a supplier or a company, a security system contracts, and then we've got our janitorial contracts. But, you know, the janitor comes at specific times, and when he's not here and during the day and stuff like that, if there's an issue, Dick gets called, and trust me, he only wishes it looks like that when he shows up. We have a lot of problems with pests around. We've got some new residents currently taking up here at City Hall, and once they leave the nest, we'll kind of deal with that. But we have a ton of ant problems here. I don't know if, and then occasionally we have to deal with bees and things like that. We also, part of the facility, you know, when there's a declaration to lower the flags by the president, the governor, the mayor, the city manager, we deal with those locations as well. And then our facility crew also helps manage capital projects and the Fund 506 projects and works closely with Scott on a lot of that. And there's our crew, one guy to do all of that. It's kind of ridiculous. And again, but the sources of the funding is pretty much general funded for that. And most of that goes into just the specific building maintenance work that he does. We do have some contracts with vendors and things like that. And then last few slides here, we do a lot of contracted maintenance just for the whole Public Works and Park maintenance crew. We've got our street sweeping contract, landscape maintenance, janitorial contract, HVAC, traffic signal, street lighting, solid waste. All of those are done through goods and services contracts. And so when you look at the whole Public Works and Parks maintenance, the revenue budget, or the budget for that group, is about $4.4 million. And this is represents the unrestricted kind of portion of that budget. It's all managed by one superintendent, John Blackburn. And again, these were the different budgets as I went through each of those facilities. That's kind of where that money's going. But the unrestricted portion of that budget, here's where those come from. So our parks maintenance, we've got the court and PD fleet, the solid waste utility tax, which currently goes into street maintenance. I mean, that's something that the city council could put somewhere else. Our facility maintenance, and then just some other miscellaneous work. But that kind of represents that unrestricted portion that funds in public works and parks maintenance. So, and at long last, that completes my City Government 101 presentation.
Outtakes after the credits?
3 minutes to spare.
Dan, this is
Questions?
Great.
phenomenal.
Yeah, nicely done.
Nicely done. You've raised the bar for everyone else. You should have done this first.
You know, I know a lot of work went into this,
Yeah.
and I know you understood why you had to put that level of work in it, because the reality is I think this will be one of the most commonly viewed presentations on our website.
I don't know, Michael's was pretty good too.
I'm not discounting but I'm just saying that we seem to get a lot of questions in this area and in these areas. And I think that the public's going to look at these things a lot.
And I think what Michael does ends up on your plate anyway. So this is really important.
That works for me.
Well, and I think it brings home whenever the general public's like, well, just cut bodies. That you're able to demonstrate, here's everything that we do, and here's this one person doing it. So I think it helps really, for me, provide a visual of just how lean we're running the city right now.
Okay.
Well, that concludes our business for tonight. Our next meeting will be June 23rd, and that's a regular city council meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks.